what y'all telling me? Exactly. What is the world telling me? Cassie could get $50 million for being in a relationship that she don't like. But I can't even get no attention for the shit that was done to me in Bronx River. The fuck is y'all telling me? What is y'all telling me? What is the...
So I got to interject here for a little bit, right? I think this is quite interesting considering that he's saying that, well, there's this case going on with Cassie. She got 50 mil because of whatever mishaps or relationship problems that she had with P. Diddy. And here I am, I get absolutely nothing. But you'll see as this live goes on and this content that I'm playing for you to kind of see and understand. Now, listen, for those of you that don't understand, let's put this in full context for a second to kind of understand what's going on. So Hassan Campbell is a famous YouTuber. He's a hood commentator, does journalism for hip hop, at least in a YouTube sense, and has had some experience with Africa Bambaataa, who is a famous artist from back in the days, maybe in the 1980s, which is in the area in the Bronx where he's from. So Hassan, he gets into it with a lot of rappers. He gets into it with a lot of hood dudes from New York, even some guys from the West Coast and whatnot. So there were a few times where he's been accused of, let's say, manufacturing beef, which is what a lot of people are criticizing him for in this one. But just wanted to interject for a little bit and kind of let you know there's a little bit of some false equivalence in trying to somehow use Cassie's case as some kind of equivalence to why nobody did anything for him in terms of the violation that he's received. So go on from here.
The world, what are we saying? I didn't ask nobody for fucking money. What are y'all telling me? What is y'all telling me? What is y'all telling me? Stop calling my fucking phone. I'm in the hood. Y'all know where to find me. 1455 Bronx River, Harvard Ave. I ain't ducking nothing. What are y'all telling me? What the fuck is y'all telling me? What the fuck is y'all telling me? Oh, this ain't gonna go viral. They're gonna keep this shit real small. Because don't nobody give a fuck about the kids in the hood getting fucked. I don't want to be in the industry. I don't like the industry. I totally disrespect the industry. I'm in the hood. Nobody likes me in my hood. I robbed these niggas. I extorted these niggas. I put these niggas on a curfew. Y'all already seen. I'm in the hood where it is what it is. It is what it is. Ain't nobody gonna make me go nowhere. But I'm just saying, what is y'all telling me? My life and my pain wasn't worth nothing? That's what the fuck y'all telling me? Everything I went through as a child, everything I went through wasn't worth nothing? That's what y'all telling me? That's what y'all telling my kids? You expect me to give back to a fucking community that ain't give shit to me? What the fuck is y'all telling me? What is y'all telling me? Where the wolves at? Where everybody at? Where the wolves at? What the fuck is everybody telling me? My story wasn't worth shit. My story wasn't worth shit. I ain't asked for no money. I asked for street justice. Couldn't even get that. I swear to God, y'all niggas better not say nothing to me. Word to my mother. Word to my mother. Word to my mother. Bronx River, everybody. I'm talking to all of y'all. Word to my mother. I will kill everybody out this motherfucker with my motherfucking knife. I won't back down from nothing. The hood ain't gonna support me. Y'all support rape niggas? Y'all support niggas that rape? Word to my mother. I'm willing to go out all out with everybody. Everybody. Step outside. I don't give a fuck who got a problem. I'm here in Bronx River right now. Y'all don't like me because of what I said. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Ain't no fucking talking. Niggas don't like me. Step up right now. Everybody. Y'all support niggas that rape niggas? I'm not backing down from nobody. I'm in the hood right now. Let's go. What I gotta be, Cassie? I ain't asked nobody.
So again, so far, what I'm gathering out of this, and by the way, I want to let you know that I've watched Hassan Campbell's content for over maybe a year now, right? I've seen all of his videos. I've been to watching all of his lives. I think he's a very interesting character, especially with the fact that he has all these different connections in the hip hop world. And not only that, also the aspect of, well, the controversial aspect of, let's say, grape that deals with children and things of that nature, right? Because obviously he came out and told the world that, well, this is what had happened to me. And this was one of his biggest theses that he often mentions in a lot of his lives. Now, what is interesting about it is that you have to understand we live in an era where everything is on the internet, right? So it's not like confining to, let's say, an anonymous group. Hey, this such and such thing happened to me. So therefore, I want you guys to sympathize with me, right? And most of the time, most people, to be quite honest with you, are cowards. They're not going to really say what they want to say to a person in real life. This is just a reality of it, unless, of course, you know how to fight or you're a real gangster or you are really about that life. But other than that, most people are kind. Most people are not going to challenge you on certain notions. But what he doesn't understand is when you go out and you tell the world, especially on the internet, that you've been violated as a kid, they're going to use it against you. Now, here's the thing. Here's my take on this. If you go out and you make fun of somebody for being violated as a kid, to me, you're a coward. Because, yes, I understand it can be low hanging fruit that you can use against your enemy. But make no mistake, you're going after somebody that was at a vulnerable stage of their life, which, by the way, is the reason why both criminals and cops alike will go after a child Chester in any capacity that they can, and even collaborate with each other regardless of their oppositional views or anything that's contrasting to both of their lifestyles. They're going to collaborate with each other. I'm talking about the cops and the criminals to go after people like this. So, yes, in turn, you got to understand that you can't just be making fun of a kid or somebody who was violated when they were a kid, because they really had no choice and they really didn't have the power to do something about it. Now, as an adult, you got to understand there's certain aspects of untreated trauma that a lot of adults go through. And by the way, we're going to talk more about that as we go on and react to this particular live stream. And then we're going to go into segments of aspects of combat sports that deals with that particular topic. So here we go.
For 30 million or 50 million. Nah, fuck that. Nah. 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 Y'all niggas support rape culture and this shit. Y'all niggas support rape culture and this shit. Y'all support rape culture and this shit. Everybody feel sorry for Cassie. Y'all feel sorry for Cassie. But y'all don't have nothing to say about everybody that went through what the fuck they went through in Bronx River with Africa Bambaataa.
Which, again, I got to tell you, it's an aspect of false equivalence. Now, here's something that I'm trying to understand, right? He went to this particular hood right here where he used to live at, right? This is the hood where he grew up at. He now currently lives in New Jersey, which is what most reasonable New Yorkers who've been from the Bronx, Queens, or anything like that will do, right? They will leave that particular area and put their family into a better life. And he did that. So for one reason or another, he comes back here expecting some sort of justice based on what? Based on the fact that Cassie was awarded $50 million from a settlement from P. Diddy. Now, I'm trying to understand what is his equivalence to this, right? Because, again, there is none. This is the quintessential aspect of a false equivalence. Now, look, I'm trying to be very objective here because, quite frankly, I like Hassan Campbell. Obviously, he's a fellow Muslim brother. He speaks a lot about real interesting topics. And on top of that, the guy he's a real street dude, and you can't help but respect that. But more on this. We'll analyze this right here.
Nobody has nothing to say about what the fuck everybody went through in Bronx River with Africa Bambaataa. Y'all stuck on Puff. And what he did with that 19-year-old girl. But y'all knew she was 19 years old when he started fucking her. And y'all had nothing to say about that. Nah, yeah, let's talk about it. But where the hood at? Where the hood at? They said I couldn't come back outside, right? I dare you niggas. 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 Your mothers will not live in these projects. I dare you niggas.
So another thing I wanted to bring up here is untreated trauma, right? Which I think is really important to bring up. Okay, so you got to understand, here he is in a neighborhood that he really has no connection in. And by the way, I could relate to this to a certain degree. I'm from the East Coast. I now currently live in the West Side, in Sacramento, and in California, right? Now, that part of the world in New York, New Jersey, I have no connection of that anymore, right? Now, have I gotten into some scraps over the years? Have I gotten to some things in that part of the world? Yes. The problem is, if I was to go back there, it wouldn't be the same people, right? If I was to go back to, let's say, a particular neighborhood, whether it would be in Jersey City, Union, or Old Bridge, New Jersey, or Union, New Jersey, or whatever place that I have some sort of connection to, the same people that I had a problem with back then are not going to be there for multiple reasons. Maybe because they got a job elsewhere, or went to college and then never came back, or went to the military and never came back. All these different aspects of why people would move. Now, he's back here. He's yelling at the wall, yelling at the sky, yelling at everybody on top of the project buildings that's in front of him. And you got to think, is there a directed aggression that he has, or is it misdirected and unresolved? Which is, by the way, what we're trying to analyze here as we go on with this reaction.
Fuck, somebody tell me I can't do what? Y'all let that rape nigga come back to Bronx River, but gonna tell me I can't do what? I dare you niggas. Run where? Run what? Run where? Run what? Cassie could get $50 million because Puff decided to rape one fucking female. But Africa Bambaataa fucked all the children. That nigga raped all the children in Bronx River Projects. And ain't nobody got nothing to say about what?
Okay, so obviously we're going to get to the scene later on where he supposedly gets shot or where the live stream cuts off. But I want to say this, even with the people that supposedly shot him, now there's reports out there that are saying this whole thing is fake, this whole thing is staged, and there has been some sort of history where Hassan has done something similar to this, where he called the cops saying that he dismantled somebody that was trying to assassinate him, and then he left the gun on the floor for the cops to pick up as some sort of evidence, and he filmed it right on live stream. So this is a little backstory of Hassan Campbell in trying to understand who he is. And again, there's a whole lot of false equivalence to this particular topic, right? Because first of all, he's constantly going at Cassie, right? Saying, okay, well, Cassie got this, but I got nothing. Well, here's something he has to understand, right? Hassan Campbell, yes, he's not a gang member, or at least in a traditional sense that we understand it to be in the West Coast. However, he is a street dude. And well, in that aspect, he's not what you would consider a civilian. And what do I mean by civilian? Obviously, it's a military term where you separate the combatives versus the innocent civilians that have nothing to do with a war that is going on. And by the way, in the world of gangs and in the world of drug cartels, they also use this particular language as well. So in that same language, Hassan Campbell isn't exactly, well, non-civilian. Okay, so he can't do what Cassie does, going through the court systems, asking for help from the police and things of that nature. So he can't get that same equivalent treatment of reparations of some sort. And by the way, he also does mention somewhere down the line of this live stream about street justice and why nobody did anything. But again, a lot of misdirected anger in this, and you'll see right here.
That nigga raped this whole fucking projects. He raped the big niggas, the little niggas, the middle-sized niggas. He raped everybody. And ain't nobody got nothing to say. Notice how they keeping these numbers low. I wish a nigga would say something to me out this motherfucker. Say what? Out this shit right here? Say what? I dare you niggas. I dare you.
So here's the thing, right? If somebody was going to come out there, which they did, and challenge him on it, what would they be challenging him on? Would they challenge him on the fact that, yeah, you shouldn't be out here talking about your experience getting violated and this and that? Yeah, because you said you were violated or this and that. We're going to do something to you. Nobody, I mean, you understand where my skepticism is in this, right? At the same time, I sort of understand there is value in entertainment. There is value in clout chasing. There is value in shock TV because guess what? This is one of the things that he always complains about. If you notice a couple of seconds before this particular segment, he mentioned something to the effect where, yeah, they keeping the numbers low. They keeping the numbers low. This is something that he constantly mentions on his live stream, which, by the way, is very common for a lot of people who are YouTube content creators to look at and say, hey, I just had 869 something views on this particular thing, and all of a sudden they said it's at 850 views as opposed to this and that. That's just them trying to audit and, I guess, give an accurate number to a certain degree, right? And then how YouTube sort of counts views is every 30 seconds that a person is listening. Well, that's considered a view. But yeah, he always mentions that. So once again, you can't blame the fact that, well, maybe he's just trying to create what do you call it? More type of drama to drum up in some kind of degree. But yeah.
You niggas. I dare you niggas. I dare you niggas. I dare you niggas. Y'all not playing with Hassan Campbell. Y'all playing with Poppy. I dare you niggas. I stab you niggas with a fucking spoon.
So I wanted to mention something really interesting that he brought up here. He says, y'all not playing with Hassan Campbell, y'all dealing with Poppy. So, by the way, this is where the segment really sort of falls into the combat sports realms of things, right? Because in the world of combat sports, we have nicknames, right? We have the natural born killer, Carlos Condit. You have Francis Ngannou, the Predator. The list goes on, right? All these names, and sometimes you sort of fall into the personification of your fight name. And by the way, in the rap world, in the content creator world, and in the entertainment world, this is really no different. You also see this with actors going crazy, like Heath Ledger when he played the Joker and tried to make a method acting aspect of trying to understand his character and really falling into it, really living up to it. Tupac had sort of the same problem when he had played Bishop in Juice, and then these roles that he played in Above the Rim, where he plays a gangster that just goes out and stabs everybody and takes names and takes no S from anybody, right? So when Hassan Campbell says y'all not dealing with Hassan Campbell, y'all dealing with Poppy, it's a sign that he is now transforming himself into this persona. Maybe a person that was in his past that a lot of people sort of looked at as like, wow, you know, this guy is a real gangster or this and that. And now he's sort of trying to play up this role and trying to convey that message as to say, I'm in a different mind space right now. So.
I stab you niggas with a spoon. I birthed you bitch ass niggas. No Bam did. That's why y'all let that other nigga rape all these kids out here and got mad because I called that bitch that bitch nigga out. He raped niggas out here. Raped girls and boys, and y'all let that nigga. I refuse to tuck my fucking tail in. I'm the realest nigga forever. Forever, ever, forever. Forever. Come outside, throw that fucking bottle. Come downstairs and throw that bottle. Come downstairs and throw that fucking bottle. Come outside and throw that fucking bottle. I stab your ass to death, bitch ass nigga. Come outside and throw that bottle. Come outside and throw that bottle. If I see that bottle come out the window, I guarantee you I come outside. I lived in this building. I'll come upstairs and fuck you up. Word to my mother. Word to my mother. Throw it again. Throw the bottle out the window again, bitch nigga. I'll stab your mother to death. I throw your mother down the flight of steps. Bitch nigga, throw it out the window. I dare you. I dare you. I'm watching. I dare you. Throw that fucking bottle out the window while I'm watching. Throw the bottle out the window while I'm watching. Don't wait for me to turn my back. Come downstairs. Come downstairs. Come downstairs. Good, right? Keep it moving. Keep it moving. What's good, though? What's good, though? What's good, though? Don't throw it out the window. I ain't running. Oh, we got Poppy outside. Let's go. Let's go. What up, though? We got Poppy outside. What's good, though? Don't throw it out the window and duck, nigga. You just throw shit out the window? Oh, I'm about to be good because I already know an army gonna come out this motherfucker. Don't hide in the house. Come outside. Come outside with the shooters. What up, though? What up, though? What up, though? Don't throw it out the window. Come outside. Come outside. No, don't hide. What y'all call it, the police, right? Come outside. Don't hide in the window.
All right. So here's what's really interesting about this, right? So once again, these people that are throwing bottles at Hassan Campbell. Now, first of all, let's try to analyze what is his main beef. His main beef is he was violated as a kid. Also, trying to tie in a false equivalence of Cassie getting all this attention of getting 50 million from P. Diddy, and he gets nothing, which again is false equivalence because why? None of those things are related. Now, these guys that are throwing bottles at him, are they throwing this bottle at him because they don't believe him that he was violated? You got to think about that. I'm also wondering if he was thinking about this in the same process as these guys are throwing bottles at him, or is it just because people in New York are just people that just get easily agitated? And by the way, some of the most aggressive people that you will ever meet in the whole entire United States. So something to think about as we go on from this.
Don't call the police, though.
Okay, so this is what's interesting when he mentions don't call the police, right? Because once again, this is why I say this is a false equivalence with Cassie. Cassie is a person that, well, I mean, look, let's be honest, right? This is not a person that is hood or a person that has any type of capacity or propensity to violence in any kind of way, right? So again, would you classify Cassie as quote unquote a civilian? Obviously. So here he goes, Hassan Campbell saying, yeah, listen, don't call the cops. Because guess what? When you come from an honor street culture that he comes from, it's not the way that you handle business. Okay. So he can't cry for a false equivalence to what Cassie had got, because guess what Cassie did? What Cassie did was go out to the cops, made a police report, told them what happened, and then on top of that, got more lawyers to jump in and, well, get a lawsuit on P. Diddy. And yet he wants to tie this whole situation of him being violated as a kid from this guy named Africa Bambaataa, who was a famous Bronx legend, and he wants some kind of justice in that kind of way. And again, I don't want to mislead you because he does say and mention something in this same live stream about, well, you know what? None of y'all did any street justice or anything. And I'm going to talk about that too. If there were people in this community that should have done something or they shouldn't have done. I'm going to talk more about that as we go on.
Don't call the police. Shook ass niggas. Don't call the police. Now the police, so don't call the police. That nigga's crazy though. Bronx, Africa Bambaataa raped the whole community.
Including you.
The old G's, the little G's, the young G's. And nobody gave a fuck. But everybody give a fuck about Cassie? All y'all care about Cassie? I'm not going nowhere. Come outside. Don't throw a fucking bottle.
There it is. There's another one thrown right there. So I wanted to say something about that, right? First of all, what does Cassie have anything to do with him? You also got to remember, too, the type of content that Hassan Campbell makes, it's hip-hop commentary. So when you constantly attach yourself to these issues and these particular settings of what is going on in the hip-hop world, you almost feel sort of this connection to where, like, okay, she got her bag because of the fact that she went out and told what had happened to her, by the way, in a very vulnerable time of P. Diddy's life, because you know that thing with Keefe D, and I've mentioned this even in this channel, even though it's a mixed martial arts channel, I'm talking about these different things. Neither here or there. That's one of the things he's worried about, right? So it's like there's no connection to him with these people. Now, is Hassan Campbell very connected in the hip hop world? Yes. I don't think it has anything to do with P. Diddy or his case with Cassie or anything like that. But because she got her justice, it is as if he feels some sort of injustice being done on him, especially from his community, who, by the way, really did absolutely nothing, according to him, when it came to these violations that had happened. So, by the way, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. We're going to continue on, and here we go.
You faggot ass nigga, come outside. Throw a bottle while I'm outside. Throw a bottle while I'm outside. I'm not running nowhere. Come outside, you faggot ass nigga. Scream out your apartment. I stabbed your mother to death. Faggot ass nigga. Don't throw a bottle and hide. Come outside, nigga. I'm out here. I'm out here. I'm out here. And if that people are playing with me, I flood this fucking building with 1,000 niggas. Stop playing with me. 1455 is my shit. I will beat your mother up, bitch. I will fuck your mother up.
So I think one of the reasons why a lot of this is going on right now is because you got to think, right? Hassan Campbell is obviously in this world of hip hop, right? And what do we know hip hop to be? It's a hyper masculine, macho world. And once again, this is literally what you are seeing right here. A lot of bravado, a lot of peacocking and what have you. By the way, if you guys notice, this is something very similar to what Conor McGregor did when he threw that dolly on the bus back in 2018. And by the way, how ironic, it's all in the same state. Obviously, this was in the Bronx. McGregor did it in Brooklyn, but yeah, that's neither here nor there. Obviously, there's a combat sports angle to this because it's a combat sports channel that has a huge interest in hip hop, at least from my own taste and liking. So here we go.
Don't throw nothing out the window while I'm not looking. Come outside. What up, though? Don't throw it out the window while I'm not looking. Come outside, nigga. Come outside. Come outside. The Warriors is out. Come outside. Come outside. What apartment is that? That's what I thought. What apartment is that? What apartment is that? What apartment is that? That's what I thought. We outside.
So now at this point, you got to ask yourself, right, what is he trying to accomplish with this? Obviously, he's angry about a case that has nothing to do with him. And then on top of that, he's going after people that may have nothing to do with whatever happened to him when he was a kid. Once again, a lot of this is misdirected aggression. And look, to be honest with you, I can understand it in a very ridiculous way. I can sort of understand where Hassan Campbell is coming at this, right? So you got to understand, when it comes to the hood and when it comes to people who rep cities, who rep certain boroughs, who rep certain projects, or in England, they call it the council estates or whatever, right? And any people that rep a certain area, you got to understand their whole entire purpose is to back that whole entire city, right? Like, you ever seen people argue about, well, my city is more gully than your city, my city is more gangster than your city, or this and that? This is sort of what it is, right? So he sees that this place, the Bronx, where, I mean, a lot of people are very proud to be from because of the fact that for whatever reason, it's one of the birthplaces of hip hop. It's an epicenter for that particular culture. Not only that, it's a tough place that has a reputation. So you're going to rep that place. At the same time, people are going to sort of hold you accountable for repping a place or being from a place. If you remember back in the East Coast versus West Coast conflict with Puff, Notorious B.I.G., Suge Knight, and Tupac, a lot of those guys were sort of putting responsibility on certain people just because they were from a certain place. And as a result of it, they would use that as some sort of way to manufacture beef. Oh, well, because you are from here or because you are with them, we're going to associate you as some kind of way of a symbol of conflict in a strange way. But yeah, here we go.
Come outside. Come outside. The wolves is out. Come outside.
And from this point, it does sort of continue on. He does sort of, continue to antagonize.
You already know where to find me at. Don't call my phone. Don't throw nothing out the window. Throw it from the front building. Throw it from the front building. Play with me if you want to. Y'all niggas play with me if you want to. When I finish, I'm going to throw your mother down some steps. Keep watching out the window. Y'all ain't seen nothing yet. Y'all don't even understand how many niggas love me. Keep on playing. This is my building. I wish y'all niggas would. I wish you niggas would. Keep on. When I catch that window and that floor, I know the floors and I know the window. When I catch it, I'm not even looking up. When I catch it, your mother gonna get thrown down a flight of steps, you broke ass nigga. And every nigga in my army gonna stomp that bitch down a flight of steps. The fuck y'all playing with? Who y'all playing with? I look like I'm running. Come outside, nigga. Don't throw it from the window. Come outside. Come outside. Y'all niggas see what they throwing out the window. Nigga, I got an army out here. Come outside. Come outside.
Eddie Rush Jr. mentions, I'll pluck you up. Is that what he said? Or did he say it like that? Or did it sound like he said something to that extent? Yeah, he said a lot of things too. He said that he'll violate these guys. He will violate them in a very degrading way, to put it lightly. And then he mentioned something to the effect of where he will throw their mothers down a flight of stairs. Now, here's the thing, right? This is something that I noticed that is sort of different from the East Coast gang mentality or in the hood thug mentality as opposed to the West Coast gang mentality. In the West Coast, they often try to avoid taking out civilians. In other words, when there is a conflict going on or when there's an action of violence that is happening within West Coast gangs, they usually just keep it within themselves, and it's usually a targeted effort. In the East Coast, at least from my experience, from what I understand people to be in New York, in the Bronx, in New Jersey, and even all the way up to Boston, all the way down to Rhode Island, all the way down to Baltimore, just the whole East Coast mentality in and of itself, it is literally a tit for tat, but sometimes a tit for tat that is, well, you try to take out my eye, I'm going to take out your whole entire brain. It's not about an eye for an eye. It's about how I'm going to dismantle you even worse than what you're going to try to dismantle me. And guess what? That includes, I guess, having your family being part of that equation as well, if it accomplishes whatever goal it is that they want in that particular conflict.
I look like I'm running. Come outside. What up, boy? Come outside.
Of course, you got to give the homies daps in between.
Come outside with the shooters. Come outside. Where you at?
So, look, as we're all trying to learn what is going on here, write on the comment section below what it is that you think Hassan Campbell was trying to target. That's what I'm trying to understand here, right? It doesn't seem like there is a strong targeted effort in trying to take out anybody, or is it just sort of this machismo type of thing where, okay, I'm out here, I'm in the most dangerous part of New York City where cops don't even want to go to, and I'm out here and I dare you to do something. Is it just that, or does it really seem that he doesn't have a targeted effort in any kind of way? If he had a targeted effort in any kind of way, you would think he would use the resources that he mentions to have with all the homies that he claims to have. And I'm not doubting that in any degree, by the way, because I know Hassan Campbell. I've researched him enough to know that, he's a pretty well connected guy. So if he wants things to happen, it can happen. The thing is, why don't they go and just, I guess, do a house raid or something, kick some doors down or something like that, which again is why there seems to be a lot of skepticism in this particular incident. So,
Don't throw no bottles out the window. Come outside. That's what I thought. Y'all think my niggas is not sitting up here watching these niggas throwing bottles out the window when I turn my head, but they won't come outside. Do I look like I'm running?
yeah, so that's an interesting comment right there. One, Colonel USA, he says he's suffering. You can see it in his face. Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? He is suffering. And again, it's a lot of misdirected aggression. I'll tell you this, right? Suicidal thoughts and depression. One, Colonel USA follows up to that as well. So he's suicidal thoughts and depression. Now, here's the thing with depression, right? Depression can sometimes not be suicidal. It can go the other way. You can be depressed and still have this aspect of having a homicidal tendency in you. Now, is Hassan Campbell sort of suffering from that? That's a possibility. Suicidal, I don't know about that, because obviously, look, here's something that I do know about the East Coast mentality, right? People in the East Coast, my goodness, let me tell you, especially if they're from the hood, or if they have any inclination of being hood or anything like that, or even emulate that kind of lifestyle, people in the East Coast are hyper narcissistic when it comes to, let's say, their looks, when it comes to, let's say, their aspects of vanity. This is just what I know from my own anecdotal experience growing up in New Jersey, in Jersey City, Union, and Old Bridge, New Jersey, and all these places in that part of the world, right? So, yeah, I don't think, that's why I don't think, in my personal opinion, obviously, I'm not a trained psychologist in any kind of way to give Hassan Campbell a diagnosis, but I don't think it's suicidal. Maybe along the lines of, yeah, homicidal. Yes, that's a possibility. But again, a lot of misdirected anger that goes on here. Here's something that I could sort of tell you about misdirected anger right now. If you grow up in that part of the world, right, you are going to get into scraps just like any part of the world, right? Whether you're in the East Coast, whether you're in the South, whether you're in the Midwest, whether you're in out of the country, whether it's in the favelas of Brazil, whether it's in Dublin, Ireland, or whether it's in Liverpool, England, or Brixton in London, and Paris and France and Romania and Russia, and whatever hood in the world, right? You're always going to get into some scraps. Now, imagine a group of guys go out and jump you, right? And let's say they have a group of friends that really didn't do anything. You can sort of take that as an act of aggression, even though, let's say, the people that jumped you and their friends did nothing. You could look at their friends and easily target them as some sort of associating them to these people that you have in conflict with. And therefore, what exactly what I had just mentioned earlier, create a misdirected aggression towards those people as a result. Yeah, LOL, he said it. So, yeah, here we go.
Do I look like I'm fucking running? Do I look like I'm running? Fucking play with me. Do I look like I'm running? Do I look like I'm running? Come outside with the shooters. Keep moving for what? Is it real, son? If it's really real, son, I'm not running from nobody. Nobody.
Yeah, thank you, Eddie. And that's that was my thoughts exactly. Was a lot of misdirected aggression, right? He goes into a place, and by the way, here's something you got to understand, right? Every year, whether it's in the projects, whether it's in the suburbs, or whether it's in, let's say, a working class neighborhood or a middle class neighborhood, neighborhoods always change. So if you have a problem with a certain specific group of people in a particular area, and then you go back there 5 years later, guess what? They're not going to be there anymore. By the way, guys, I got to tell you, in the summer of 2022, right, I flew over to the East Coast. By the way, as you guys know, and who have been following this page for a while, I'm a Californian, right? Eddie says it's his ego. Yeah, it is a lot of his ego, right? So I flew to the East Coast. Look, make no bones about it. I've gotten into a lot of conflicts with different guys over the years. And guess what? You know, there's some guys that I will never forgive for one reason or another, because of the way that, let's say, they may have picked on certain people, or the way that they may have created a certain level of aggression towards me or anybody else. Okay. Well, the minute that I flew down there, right, I noticed there was a difference in my old hometown. And by the way, this wasn't any hood or anything like that, or any violent place or anything, but still, I look around and I start thinking to myself, okay, I go to these different restaurants or these diners that I used to go to, and I say to myself, okay, you know what? Is such and such going to pop up here? Right? You start remembering all these things that you got into, right? This aspect of, street fights that you got into as a kid, because everybody gets into a little bit of a street fight or some sort of scuffle as a kid, right? This is quite normal. And then I'm looking around and I'm thinking, you know what? Is such and such going to pop up when such and such happened on this particular date? And then I realize, wait a minute, this is the summer of 2022. These people are long and gone. A lot of them have either died from drug overdose or gone on to college and got on with their lives and their careers, and are completely forgotten in whatever this place gives me some sort of memories for. So once again, yeah, Eddie Rush here says it right. It's really just about pride in that particular aspect when it comes to Hassan Campbell and what he's trying to do here, and also just an aspect of misdirected aggression. And I'd be really curious to see what his thoughts are about this when he gets out. Obviously, he made that 1 minute video, which I'm going to do a reaction on also as we continue on with this live stream.
Where the shooters at? Niggas throwing bottles out the window. Come outside. I stabbed your mama to death. What? That's what I thought. I stabbed your mother to death. That's something happening in Bronx. I guarantee my niggas will come through this shit and switch truth. What's Jesus? Say where you at. Now keep the distance. What up, though? 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 Don't stay in the window. Come outside with the shooters. Don't stay in the windows. Come outside with the shooters. Don't stay in the window. Come outside with the shooters. What happened, though? What up, though? What up, though?
A shout out to Eddie Rush. He said, I'm going to be rich one day and you're great. Keep going. Thank you, my brother. And by the way, don't forget to like and subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend so we can help blow up this channel in all your combat sports needs, not just MMA, not just boxing, but also geopolitics and everything in between. But of course, focused on mixed martial arts as a vehicle to sort of give you guys a lesson in life in general. And by the way, I want to tell you one of the reasons why I started watching Hassan Campbell was for this exact reason. I look at what he does. He's not interested in this whole fiasco, what is going on in the hip hop world, even though he's heavily connected in it. Just like myself, I would say I'm pretty well connected in the mixed martial arts world because of the people that I've trained with, because of the people that I know in the business, and because of the networks and connections that I've gained in the world of sports management and things of that nature. But in any light, I gotta tell you, when it comes to sports industries and music industries, it's a world full of scumbags and a world full of people that you just don't want to associate with on your free time if you don't have to, right? Well, Hassan Campbell still uses the hip hop world and its stories as a way to teach you guys a lesson. And I thought, you know what? This is brilliant. This is literally what I do in the combat sports world. I cover the fights, I break down the fights, I break down the techniques, I break down the storylines, the business side of combat sports, the psychological side of combat sports, all in ways to try to create some sort of story and lessons that you can draw from with these particular athletes, with these particular events, with, let's say, a particular storyline that has geopolitical implications to it. So, in that same way, I sort of relate to Hassan Campbell in that, aside from the fact that, of course, we both have a Muslim background, and that sort of helps me relate to him in that sort of capacity. But nonetheless, I think that what he does is brilliant. He's a brilliant storyteller, and he's also a brilliant artist, if you really want to call him that. Obviously, he's not a rapper, but what we do here on YouTube and the content creator world, it's sort of art in a way, right? So, when you have art in that sort of way, well, you're going to find a lot of really eccentric people that do art, and how they're able to, let's say, navigate themselves into creating this art really involves a lot of chaos. And this is a prime example of that in Hassan Campbell.
What up, though? What up, though? Don't stay in the window. Come outside with the shooters. Everybody got something to say. Until a real nigga got something to say. Everybody got something to say. Until a real nigga got something to say. Come outside. That's my shit right here. Throw something else out the window. I promise you.
Okay, so in a minute or so, we're gonna get to the finale of this video. Obviously, that's not going to be end of this live stream. We're still going to go on. But what I wanted to point out was that, okay, he said, real ninja, whatever, you know, until a real ninja comes and says something. Exactly what? Who are you directing this towards, Hassan Campbell? That is a question, right? Now, I think I have an answer to that. He is associating everybody as a responsible party for the graping that has gone on. By the way, I don't want to say the actual word. That's the word that you got to use here on YouTube nowadays to try to, I guess, not get flagged. But yeah, all the grape that has happened and this and that, right? He wants to put some kind of responsibility towards somebody. He wants to put the responsibility on the hip hop fans for harboring this type of behavior, for promoting this kind of behavior and rewarding it through their cash dollars or their attention span through views and whatnot. So that's kind of where Hassan Campbell is in this particular aspect. Another thing with Hassan Campbell is, once again, we keep saying it over and over again, misdirected aggression at its finest.
So I throw your mother down some steps. Throw something else out this window and let me catch you. I know every floor, every apartment. I will throw your mother. And while I'm throwing your mother down the flight of steps, I'm going to throw you down the flight of steps. You little niggas. Y'all niggas got me fucked up. What up, though? What up, though? What up, though? What up, though?
Yeah, well, here's the thing, Eddie. You know, he already did get himself hurt, which is the next video I'm going to get to, him being in the hospital. And yeah, you're right. It's no one. There is really no one that he's getting at. It's just that he's going to the place of the crime that had happened, right? And again, this is why unresolved issues can be a serious problem for a lot of people. And this is something of why you see a lot of combat sports athletes get into trouble. You see John Jones with the domestic situation he had going on, even with Mike Tyson back in the days, Floyd Mayweather. This is a prime example of that in what we are seeing with Hassan Campbell, unfortunately. So, yeah, in the next couple of minutes, you're going to see the video cut, which, by the way, is where all the William M says, "Hey, bro, salute, semper fi." Fellow U.S. Marine up in here, William M. What's up, William? But yeah, so this was a wild Sunday morning. Indeed, it was, my man. This was absolutely a wild Sunday morning right here. I remember seeing this on live, and I was thinking, you know what? Hassan Campbell is on live every time he's on. He he really did. Eddie says here he really got shot. He did. But again, the controversy. By the way, the second part of this particular content is going to go into the controversy of what everybody has been saying about Hassan Campbell and where his video sort of cut out here.
I see.
Okay, so you see that gentleman right there. That was just sort of giving him some sort of signal. He's like saying, yeah, something, or someone's coming in, and he's like, yeah, I see. So somebody really was walking up there, and someone was throwing glass bottles at him. Yeah, we were just showing that earlier. So here it is right here.
What?
Take the second exit on.
Okay, so you see that right there? Just right there. He's like, who dat? And then if you notice, he went and sort of pointed right in his button, I guess, to either turn off the stream or to somehow look, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors to this. Look at this again.
I see.
He says, I see. And then he looks that way. He may see something as some sort of reflection, or and then he looks back.
Who that?
Who dat? After he says who dat, right there, you see? Then the screen cuts out. After he says who dat, it cuts out. And then here we are. All of a sudden, within a matter of seconds, we're in a car with Hassan Campbell
on Westchester Avenue
as he's driving himself to the hospital.
At the roundabout, take the second exit on Westchester Avenue. In a quarter of a mile.
No, leave it. Come on, go. I got you. Go straight.
I need to get to the hospital.
I got you.
Son.
I'm gonna get you the ambulance.
Red light camera reported ahead.
Ooh. Oh, wait.
Pull over. Let's just get your ambulance.
That bullet getting hot.
I know. That's why I said just pull over. Let me get your ambulance.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what made this whole thing really quite strange in that, right? Like it just cut out right into the hospital, or I'm sorry, not right into the hospital, obviously the drive towards the hospital, right? So So here's the thing, right? I'm going to play the video of him in the hospital. I'm going to make comments on that as well. Now, I'm going to try to relate this to combat sports in general, right? You got to understand something. This is something that a lot of fighters have had some serious problems with when it comes to, let's say, flexing their machismo in some kind of way. If you guys remember, I don't know who this guy was. I believe he was Dylan Dennis's friend or somebody that Dylan Dennis had trained with to a certain capacity. But there was this Brazilian jiu-jitsu artist that got shot down in Brazil because of some little incident that they had going on in a bar, right? Now, obviously, if you're a world-class jiu-jitsu champion, in your mind, you're going to think to yourself that, well, you know what? I'm the baddest man in the world and nobody's going to stop me. Okay, maybe that's true in the confines of a wrestling mat, in the confines of a cage, in the confines of a boxing ring. But the fact of the matter is, when you are out there, nobody wants to receive a head kick from you. Nobody wants to get choked out by you. You're going to have to be looking over your shoulder for the rest of your life. So those are some of the things that you have to understand. Even in New York, you got to understand it's a very dangerous place. By the way, if you noticed, I've covered this during the Logan Paul Dylan Dennis fight. Dylan Dennis once mentioned that he saved Logan Paul and his partner Mike from a heap of danger from potentially getting shot in New York, because obviously the way Dylan Dennis sort of referenced it, he's like, well, I'm very well connected. I stopped this whole thing. So William M says unresolved issues only build and build, and that's why it's important to really resolve issues and not let them fester inside. Well said right there. Well said right there, William. And he said, I just subscribed. Thank you, my brother. And for those of you that are watching, please don't forget to like and subscribe so that I can become one of the biggest combat sports channels in the world. And perhaps maybe I can go out and start some conflict with your favorite MMA YouTubers and content creators just for entertainment, huh? But that's neither here or there. But yeah, William M got that 100% correct, is that, yes, when you have unresolved issues, they only build and build. And that's why it's important to really resolve these issues and not let them fester inside. And by the way, this is the reason why George St. Pierre is a real role model in a sense of everything that we are just talking about right now, right? Because obviously, look, if you guys remember during the Nick Diaz and Nate and George St. Pierre fight, Nick Diaz asked George St. Pierre, hey, you ever had a gun pulled to your head before? And then obviously George St. Pierre sort of deflected that whole statement and was like, well, you know, this has nothing to do with any of that. This has nothing to do with any of that. This is a fight. This is a professional mixed martial arts setting. And there's nothing more to it, nothing more, nothing less. This is all irrelevant, but nonetheless, George St. Pierre was also bullied as a kid, just like anybody else out there that was a top combat athlete. There isn't a top combat athlete that grew up as the toughest guy in the world and all of a sudden just grew up and was born that way, right? At least not for the most part. Obviously, there are some guys out there that are complete studs that were just studs from the beginning of their life and they dominated everybody all throughout their entire life, says absolutely nobody. But who knows? There are guys out there like that. Tom Brady is a great example of that, but he's not a combat athlete, so he can't claim to be the baddest man in the world, right? Even Ronaldo, he's also like that, but hey, he's not in this community of combat sports athletes. So yeah, it's a completely different completely different way of thinking. So with George St. Pierre, right? He doesn't allow any of these things to fester inside him, which is a very important point that William had mentioned here, right? Unresolved issues only build and build. And that's why it's important to really resolve them and not let them fester inside. He is on the money on that particular aspect right there, because this is George St. Pierre in a nutshell. You look at the guy, he's happy, he's pleasant, he's obviously very content with the life that he's led, the accomplishments that he's made. You know, there's guys that have accomplished more than George St. Pierre that have a lot of unresolved issues. Would you say Conor McGregor is sort of in that same environment, sort of in that same mental trajectory? He was a double champion. He won it while he was a featherweight champion, and then he became the 155 champion. George St. Pierre never did that. Yes, he did have 2 titles that he won, but that was separately. By the way, all taking place in NYC, by the way, interestingly enough. And then he didn't make the same amount of money that Conor McGregor did, but you look at Conor McGregor, he just seems like the type of guy that has a lot of unresolved issues. And one example of that, take a look at what happened when that woman that was in Conor McGregor's yacht in Spain, right? She was an Irish woman who, by the way, was a little bit older than Conor. I believe they went to the same high school, and lo and behold, guess what happened? Conor threw her out of the yacht. Now you got to think, what possessed Conor to do that to this woman, right? They were obviously the only Irish people there that was in Spain. Well, obviously, a lot of Irish and British people go down there in vacation and whatnot, but that's neither here or there. But this is not just any other Irish or British person that's going down a holiday in Spain. This is somebody that he went to high school with. So because of that, he goes and throws her out of the yacht. And then you got to think, maybe, I don't know, maybe this woman rejected him somewhere down the line, maybe made him feel less of himself. Hey, that's one example of unresolved issues. And then you think about him punching an old man at the bar. I'm like, you're thinking, what's up with that? There's a lot of unresolved issues there on that end, right? So William mentions here, what was Hassan doing there? Was there beef with someone in the apartment complex? That's a great question, William. Well, that's sort of the question that we were asking about this whole thing, right? What he was doing there was that he was going to confront a place of crime that had taken when he was violated as a kid by Africa Bambaataa. Now, Africa Bambaataa has known to have, or rumored to have, violated a whole bunch of kids. And, well, apparently, according to Hassan, they did nothing about it. They did no type of street justice. And he somehow correlates this to the current case that Cassie has going on with P. Diddy. And why does he do that? Because he is a hip hop commentator, a hip hop journalist connected to the streets on top of that, aside from just being an average YouTuber. Because he's not an average YouTuber. Obviously, he has 500,000 followers and whatnot, right? But overall, he's trying to take out his issues on the topics that he talks about. And somehow he feels like there's some sort of collective reasoning behind all this, right? Well, okay, because this happened with Cassie, then this has something to do with me. So, yeah, that's what's really confusing about this. And then William says, I feel this is a major problem nowadays. People don't settle beefs and let stuff build and build. And next thing you know, somebody snaps and something goes crazy. Yeah, that's right. That is the quintessential aspect of it all, right? Now, the thing is, it becomes misdirected because a person that you have a problem with, okay, is not present. Sometimes they are not in your life. Sometimes they're not even on this earth anymore. Now you have no resolution to whatever it is that you had a problem with in the first place. It just becomes a misdirected aggression, which is literally what we're seeing here. And, you know, I feel for Hassan Campbell. He's a very articulate speaker, very well spoken. As you know, very influential in the world of YouTube. But I'm going to play you guys his video that he was in when he was in the hospital, and then we're going to go on about the whether it's fake or whether it's real. But yeah, let's go on this one right here. And William says, facts spot on, bro. Yeah, 100%. Thank you, my brother, and thank you for your subscription and your support. So let's see here.
But I'm still alive. Bed. What up, people? Y'all see me up in this hospital bed. So right now they're about to take this bullet out. Got a miserable night sleeping in this hospital, boy. Back's looking crazy. Braids looking nasty. Face need to shape up. But I'm still alive.
Yeah, you know what's real interesting about this? He's very self-deprecating in this video. He mentioned something to the effect where, yeah, look at the bags in my eyes, look at my hair, I need a line up or this and that. Guys, let me tell you, this is very typical East Coast behavior. A lot of the guys that I grew up with, they will literally clown you if you don't have a proper shape up in your haircut, right? If you don't have your hair lined up, or if your gear is not on right, or this and that. This is an East Coast mentality, right? That's why when I came out to the West Coast, one of the first towns that I had actually lived in when I first came out in West was, believe it or not, in Stockton, California, because I had a cousin who lived out there. So I stayed out there, and then I noticed the people in that part of the world aren't as fashion centric as, let's say, the New Yorkers were. And this is just a few things that I had picked up on in terms of just the different cultural aspects of things.
I'm still alive. Oh man, boy, Mr. Checkmate was asleep there all night.
I got to tell you, here's some positive twists that I think we could take from this particular story, right? Now, obviously, there's debates going on whether this is real or whether this is not, whether this is staged. Now, look, you got to think to yourself, right? There has been police reports that have happened for this particular incident. So this is a fact. It did happen. The only problem is that people are a bit skeptical of the whole live stream thing, right? As opposed to, I don't know, I guess kind of taking it for face value. And look, you can't blame them, right? But here's what we do know. What we do know is that Hassan Campbell is in the hospital. Okay. His friend is right there. And by the way, this shows you a high level of loyalty that his friends have for him, right? Look at this guy. He's been here the whole entire night, ordered Chinese food with Hassan Campbell, and just chilling here in the hospital, sleeping, by the way, in a very uncomfortable position. If any of you guys have ever been in a hospital for one reason or other, maybe if your missus was given birth, or maybe if you were there because somebody had an injury, or in this worst case scenario, somebody getting shot, you would notice it's not the most comfortable thing. I mean, obviously you could create some sort of more comfortable accommodations where they bring in like some sort of like one of those pull-out chairs or something like that. But nonetheless, this takes a lot of loyalty for somebody to do this. So I just wanted to sort of highlight that, right? So yeah, this is really interesting, right? So we know that, but we also know there is a police report in the Bronx that does indicate that there were shots towards Hassan Campbell. And if you look closely in this video, they're going to show you the bullet that was presented as well.
So this is the bullet that got me right here.
So right here, yeah, this is where you really can't say that this is fake. And by the way, to this comment right here, William says, yeah, California is more laid back and not so high strung for sure. Yes, that's definitely true. But obviously the craziness that goes on in the East Coast and in the West Coast, it's all the same, right? There's gun violence going on, obviously, for different reasons. Out here, it's more for gangs. Over there, it's more for, I guess you would say, regional territories, maybe even drug rivals, drug gang rivals to a certain extent. But yeah. And then Williams says here, why in the world would he fake all of this? Absolutely crazy. This is definitely real. Yeah. The reason why a lot of people are sort of skeptical about this is because of the live stream, which I had showed you earlier, right? I mean, it cut from like, okay, what's going on? Oh, word. Oh, and the next thing you know, he goes and presses the button. And next thing you know, the video pops up to him being in a car trying to get to the hospital, to the point that we are at right now. And then William says, I really enjoy Hassan's videos. He's very well spoken and speaks the truth. Yeah, 100%. This is one of the reasons why I'm a fan of his channel. And you got to think, like, why is an MMA channel like mine right now talking about Hassan Campbell getting shot up or this and that? You know, he has no connection to the MMA world. He doesn't manage anybody. He's not a fan of the sport at any degree. He hasn't really contributed to this particular world. But guess what? He does contribute in a way where he speaks a lot of good truth. He speaks a lot of um, he talks a lot about good stories that can relate to real life situations and lessons that we can all draw from. And on top of that, he says things that, well, a lot of people are just not comfortable with saying. Like, for example, he talks about how the hip hop industry is poisonous, but to some degree, he sort of benefits from it. And again, this is one of the reasons why I sort of relate to Hassan Campbell in that kind of way, because like himself, I'm sort of a commentator or some sort of observer or a content creator for the world of mixed martial arts because of my ties and because of the people that I've known in this particular business and this particular fighting sport. Yes, I'm going to be compelled to talk about it, but like him, I also want to do it in a way where I can convey some sort of life lessons and stories about it. And then he says he talks a lot also about how dark and hateful this world is now, too. Yes. And he also ties it into a lot of Islamic references with the end days, which kind of shows a different wrinkle to his understanding of Islamic eschatology, Islamic prophecies, and the Quran, which really makes him a well versed commentator in the world of hip hop, which I think is really needed in that particular community. So here it is with the bullet that he's showing right here.
Piece of cake.
All right, shut up.
Listen, whenever you see East Coast guys put their hands in their chin like this, okay? I gotta tell you, it is that conceited, vanity driven part of the East Coast that I am talking about right here. And by the way, Hassan Campbell has even mentioned this, right? When he's mentioned this before in his live streams, I was like, yo, my man knows exactly what I'm talking about. He knows exactly what I mean when I say that the East Coast is a very vanity conceited driven world. Right. So he's looking at himself right now. He's like, yeah, yeah, I got shot, but I still look good. I still look good. I got a little bag in my eyes, but I still look good. This is literally what you're seeing with Hassan Campbell right now. Oh man, Hassan Campbell. Hassan Campbell, my man Hassan Campbell. I got to tell you, man. Wow. So, again, this is one of the things that I really wanted to emphasize with this guy is that, look, you there are a lot of misdirected aggression and a lot of unresolved issues here that I think he really needs to take a look at. But again, you also got to understand. Listen, this is going to be very lucrative for Hassan Campbell in the long run. It really is, right? You got to understand that. Well, look, this world of content creators, the world of hip hop, and the world of combat, mixed martial arts, and boxing, you got to have a lot of bravado in order to get attention, right? But sometimes there's realness in that particular aggression that you have. Now, this is what my man here says. From what I heard from the video at the apartment complex, it sounds like 4 to 5 glass bottles were thrown at him. So yeah, that's quite an interesting observation, William. So would you say that those 4 or 5 bottles being thrown at him, were they from the same people or were they from different people? Because then you got to think, what are some of the reasons these people are attacking him for? Is it just because he's agitating them and he's out there making a fool out of himself? Now, look, if you didn't know who Hassan Campbell is, obviously we're watching this video live. When you saw it live or when you're watching it right now as we're reacting to it, you got to think to yourself, right? Like, if you didn't know Hassan Campbell, you think, who is this crazy guy out here? You just yelling out of nowhere. You ever seen people just act up at the mall out of nowhere and they're just screaming and yelling and this and that? And you're thinking, like, who is this guy? But since we know Hassan Campbell, we know a couple of things. We know that, okay, this may have something to do with his past and the beef that he has going on and all these conflicts that he creates online with different content creators, artists, and people that are in relevance to a certain degree. Or is it one of these situations where, I don't know, man. He I guess again, I guess it's just one of those misdirected things, right? It's hard to tell from what William here says, right? So I'm gonna play you a video that I did 4 days ago about Anthony Joshua, right? It's called Top Boy or Posh Boy, right? I think it sort of relates to a lot of the recent times. It seems Anthony Joshua has taken a completely different career trajectory. And what exactly do I mean by that? Well, you look at the guy, he is now a bit of a gangster as opposed to before. Now, let me give you a little backstory to sort of understand what is going on. And for those that have listened to my content for a long time, I have mentioned this about Anthony Joshua in relationship to Tyson Fury's downfall, in terms of Anthony Joshua becoming a unified champion after Tyson Fury dropped his belts. And what exactly is that? Well, Tyson Fury was the politically incorrect champion, and now that he's regained his titles after the Deontay Wilder fights, he still is that guy. He still is very unhinged, shoots off the mouth, doesn't really have any filter. Whereas with Anthony Joshua, it was a little bit different. Anthony Joshua was in this circle of mainstream appeal. So because of that, he had to act a certain way. Well, now fast forward a couple of years later, no longer the unified champion, no longer, let's say, the bigger star that he was back then in terms of being able to fill up stadium fights, right? I mean, it sort of indicates those signs, considering the fact that he went from having stadium fights to having fights in the O2 Arena, which is not a knock, but O2 Arena fights, if you're a big boxer like Anthony Joshua, those are prospect fights. Those are, at best, UFC fight nights, even though UFC's held some pretty big events there. Nonetheless, a downgrade. So when you're going through all that, it's a little bit easier to put your mind in the gutter, to put your mind at a situation where I don't care what anybody thinks of me. I don't care what this guy says or this guy and this and that. Imagine, try to put it like this in this particular scenario, right? Let's say you had a corporate job, and the corporate job really absolutely requires you to be clean cut and toe to line. In other words, you're not going around saying controversial things, you're not saying offensive things, and you're playing the inclusive game, okay? And maybe you're not that guy. Maybe you're a guy that doesn't have a filter. I know a lot of guys that are like that, right? That have corporate jobs. They had a corporate job, and every time. Yeah, William, I wanted to address that, right? He says, by the way, I'm a giant Bruce Lee fan. Bruce was amazing and passed away too soon. I believe Bruce was only 30. He was amazing in The Big Boss and Enter the Dragon. Yeah, absolutely classic of a movie, right? I mean, anybody that is influenced by hip hop or mixed martial arts knows Bruce Lee, right? And here's another thing about Bruce Lee, too. He was another guy that sort of played a character also, right? But also had a bit of a machismo attitude about him, which, by the way, I think would sound very sacrilegious to a lot of Bruce Lee fans to say, but let's just call it what it is, right? The guy had a bit of some arrogance to him, because you got to think, right? He figured out that you can mix up all these different styles and not only that, you don't have to confine yourself to this one style from one particular country or region. And now you can learn from different people and sort of bring all of that into the mix when it comes to a combative situation, right? There's not just one way of doing things. So with that, he became very arrogant. He became sort of very punchy in a way. He challenged a lot of people. If you notice in the Quentin Tarantino movie, he got into a fight with, I believe, a stuntman who was a judo expert. And I believe it was depicted as somebody named Gene Bell or something, the guy who was played by Brad Pitt. Right, this was Bruce Lee in a nutshell, right? Which again falls into the topic of what we're talking about with having all this machismo and having all this aspect of trying to prove yourself. William here says Bruce was so fast for the camera producers, it was hard to tell him to slow down. Yeah, he was quite fast in that, right? So they punch that clock. They got to play this role of trying to be somebody they're not. And then when they clock out and they're at home, they're completely different people. I think we're all like this to a certain degree, right? For the most part. Now imagine, let's say you have two different scenarios where you're Donald Trump or you're a person that just got fired from this job. What do they have in common? The person that got fired and Donald Trump. What do they all have in common? What they have in common is they don't care. They have all the money in the world. They don't need money from you. They don't need to appease you or any corporation of that matter. And they're going to say what they want. This is now Anthony Joshua in a nutshell. Anthony Joshua is not only Donald Trump, meaning that he has FU money, but he's also that guy that got fired from that corporate job. And now he can say whatever he wants after years of suppression. So this is the reality of Anthony Joshua as we know it today. Also, let's take into consideration Anthony Joshua is also a person that comes from a very violent hood of Watford, England, which, by the way, is a city right outside of London, within the London city limits, that has stabbings, has shootings, has gang warfares and drug dealing, prostitution, and maybe even human trafficking to a certain degree. You come from a place like this, it ain't nothing nice, okay? You'll see a little bit of his true personality when, let's say, he got confronted by those college students, right? Or he actually confronted these college students that were shouting a bunch of nonsense at him from a balcony. And lo and behold, guess what Anthony Joshua does? Knock, 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 knock. Who's there? It's Anthony Joshua. You're talking smack about me? Let's take this outside, or let's settle this right here. And he told them, hey, listen, I don't know what you guys are seeing on the media, but I'm not all about that hype. And I think I know exactly what Anthony Joshua means when he said that to those kids. What exactly does he mean by that is this. Just because you see me acting politically correct on TV, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to punch your lights out in public or in private. And this is Anthony Joshua in a nutshell. So now you go into the press conference, right? Anthony Joshua was confronted by his former rival, a guy that he was supposed to fight, Jarrell Miller. Jarrell Miller couldn't make it because he tested positive, and in comes Andy Ruiz, and you guys know the rest of the history, especially for my boxing historian fans out there, and not only that, people that understand boxing from its recent history, because that was just not too long ago, around 2019, that Andy Ruiz fight happened. So fast forward, 2023, here we are. Now they're in a press conference in the same place again in London, this time taking on different opponents. Great. So what is great about this? The difference between Anthony Joshua now and then, guess what? He's going to talk back to you. He's not suppressed anymore. If you remember, the way that Jarrell Miller went after Anthony Joshua back in the 2019 presser, the guy didn't want to really say anything back to Jarrell Miller. He wanted to take the high road. You know, this is the thing that a lot of people that don't come from, let's say, the hood, or people that come from the street culture, or people that come from an honor culture of any kind, they don't understand that you sometimes just can't be the bigger person. Now, that right there goes into exactly everything that we had just talked about with Hassan Campbell, right? You can't always be the bigger person. Sometimes you have to step up and do something. Now, in this case, unfortunately, there is no direction to any kind. And this has been the main thesis of this whole entire content from the beginning of when I started this stream, is that there is no particular direction in where he wanted to take this. Now, one can argue maybe his direction was to create content because let's face it, I'm going to say something very controversial right now. Are you guys ready? I'm going to say something controversial in 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here it goes. People in the hip hop community are easily entertained by the stroke of violence or the stroke of machismo attitude. And there's no nicer way of putting that. That's what they like. You know, like, okay, let's put this into a bit of a boxing setting, right? You guys remember when Jermel Charlo just recently lost to Canelo Alvarez, right? Charlo was saying something to the effect, well, I want to do this for the culture or this and that. And guess what happened? He lost, and Cameron and Mace got on their YouTube and completely dissed him, saying something to the effect of, well, you know, you did it for the culture. What did you do? What culture? You just ran the entire fight and just completely clowned them on their YouTube channel. This is the hood in a nutshell. The minute you get beat up, let me tell you, I've been in a few scraps in school and this and that in the East Coast where people have a hood mentality, even if you're in the suburbs. The minute you get your butt whooped, people are going to look at you and say, yeah, you know, he got his butt whooped or this and that. They don't want to look at any nuances of whether you put up a good fight or the fact that you even showed up for the fight in of itself. They just look at it like, you got whooped or you got beat up. You know, oh, you know, such and such, you seen Pookie, he got beat up. Yeah, yeah. You know, so that's sort of the culture that a lot of these people come from, right? You got to understand that it's that type of mentality. You know, they like violence. They only understand things through violence. And guess what Hassan Campbell wanted to do was offer that. He offered a certain sense of violence. He knew that guys were going to do something. They were either going to come out or stab him, or they were either come out and fight him. Either way, it was going to be great content for him regardless. And then William here says, Game of Death was really good, but if Bruce Lee would have still been alive, it would have been 10 times better. There's a lot of scenes in that movie. You can clearly tell it's not Bruce. The ending was good. And then he also says here, also from what I heard from the higher-ups, it didn't want him teaching his MMA to others, so they sent out a fighter to fight Bruce Lee. And if Bruce Lee had lost, he had to stop teaching. Well, Bruce had won, and he also said that he whooped that dude in 30 seconds. Yeah, well said. Well said. I do remember that. Yeah, that was in the Bruce Lee autobiography. Could you try being the bigger person if, let's say, God forbid, any of you get locked up and now you're in jail? Now you have to be in a situation where you have to play the tough guy role, because if you don't, you're going to get eaten alive by the killers that are in jail, the predators, the vultures, all these people that, well, will take advantage of you in a drop of a hat. You can't. So you got to talk back. And guess what Anthony Joshua did in that press conference? He talked back and did exactly what Anthony Joshua normally does when the cameras aren't off, when the cameras aren't on, when the cameras are not around, when he's not facing the media, when he's not shooting commercial advertisements. And also we're seeing the AJ that we knew him to be before he was AJ the gold medalist. This is the real AJ, whether you like it or not. In my personal opinion, I like it. Not only do I like it, I love it. I think it's great. I think it's genius. I also think it's a new evolution in his character, which is something you have to do. Everyone that has a gimmick, that has a shtick, or even some kind of persona, let me tell you, it's a testament that over time, you have to evolve your character. Colby Covington, he was a guy that was the plain Jane wrestler. all of a sudden he evolved into this Trump MAGA guy. Okay, so now Trump is slowly losing relevancy in the world stage as a world leader. Now you have to evolve. Now you have to be Colby Covington, the guy that is some sort of a Ric Flair character of some sort. And what do I? Yeah, just to answer your question, William, thank you. By the way, when do I usually go live? I don't usually have a schedule, but make no mistake, if there is a combat sports news related news cycle, or if there was a fight going on, you best believe that I'm going to be right on it, right? Which, by the way, if there is a fight going on, yeah, I'm definitely going to cover it from UFC, boxing, and anything that is relevant in the modern world of combat sports today. So that's usually when you can see me live. You can usually catch all of my videos that I put up and everything else in between. And then he mentions here Roman Reigns really involved into his character too. Okay, so I don't know much about pro wrestling, at least not in the modern context, meaning that I haven't watched pro wrestling in a long time. I think I stopped watching completely in terms of following it week and week out just right before the pandemic. And then after the pandemic, I sort of started watching it again. And then afterwards, I just fell right out of it and would only watch it if, let's say, there's some sort of combat sports related situation that is going on there with the likes of Ronda Rousey or Brock Lesnar or something to that extent. So if you know anything about what Roman Reigns is going through with his character, let me know. I know that he had that bloodline character with bloodline storyline, I'm sorry, with the Usos, where he's basically the head chief of this Samoan gang, which I thought is quite a brilliant storyline. But yeah, let me know what he has going on. And then he said, love the NWO and Hollywood Hogan. You know what? I'm glad you mentioned that. There is a video that I had made about this, right? Regarding not necessarily Hulk Hogan, but more about, let's say, the persona that you have to take when it comes to, let's say, evolving your character in a combat sports, right? So where was that video that I had mentioned? I believe it is right here. This one right here. This is a video that I had made. So the follow-up to this video from the previous one is regarding Tom Aspinall's personality in terms of contrasting that of Brock Lesnar, and where I left off, I was going to say Floyd Mayweather. In terms of, this is the quintessential American bad guy in a martial arts movie. Floyd Mayweather plays that role perfectly. Brock Lesnar plays that role perfectly. Somebody like Ken Masters, who is a fictional Street Fighter character, sort of embodies that personality. He's sort of an anti-hero, meaning that he's a good guy, but at the same time, he's sort of an anti-hero, sort of like Sean Strickland, who, by the way, is quite popular nowadays ever since he became champion. So I thought it's quite interesting to really bring this up because, once again, one of the things that I was emphasizing in the last video as it was ending is that in order to compel people to watch you, they either have to love you enough with the affection of wanting to see you do good, or hate you long enough to wish on your downfall and for them to witness it in some event in one form or another. Whether it's, let's say, Tyson Fury having a hard time with Francis Ngannou, but still gaining the victory. And to some's opinion, maybe Francis Ngannou won that fight. Or somebody like John Jones, who got their butts handed to them twice with the likes of Dominic Reyes and Gustafsson in the first fight, only for John Jones to get the favorable decision on both of those events. And now you look at John Jones, guess what? He has a personality that you love to hate, which, by the way, falls into this theme that I'm talking about with the quintessential American bad guy in combat sports. You look at the other countries around the world in comparison to America. wouldn't you say that America is a lot more privileged than any country out there on the planet? On top of that, you also got to take into consideration the reputation that the United States of America has developed over the years with, let's say, the war on terror, post 9/11, the Patriot Act, and then on top of that, the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, which unarguably over time became very unpopular to the American population. And because of that, it gave America a certain image that it would have never imagined itself to be. In the 1980s, Hulk Hogan was the biggest professional wrestler in the entire world of combat sports and entertainment, and in particular, professional wrestling. Now, why is that significant? What did he stand for during those times? He stood for say your prayers, take your vitamins, and I don't know what the last one is. Train, say your prayers, and take your vitamins. I suppose that's all the noble advice that Hulk Hogan gave to young kids. And he was an American hero. He wore the American flag. He fought the bad guys that were depicted literally as the nemesis of America, with, let's say, Sergeant Slaughter becoming, let's say, a traitor to the United States of America. And by the way, that storyline back in the 1980s, where Sergeant Slaughter was going to defect to the Iraqi side of the military world, they were going to have him burn the American flag, but instead he ended up burning a Hulk Hogan paraphernalia. Now, why is that symbolic? Because, for one, Sergeant Slaughter already got serious heat for playing a role of an American traitor to the Iraqis, in favor of the Iraqis, during the time when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait and the United States had to come in there and save them. So it was hot in and of itself. And now they were like, no, we're not going to have you burn the American flag. It's just going to be too much. So instead, they were like, let's burn the next best thing, which was Hulk Hogan's paraphernalia merchandise, which was a red and yellow Hulk Hogan shirt. So he goes and burns it. After he goes and he burns it, guess what happens? Sergeant Slaughter got some of the biggest heat that he ever got. And Hulk Hogan became the biggest hero as a result, because he had to go out and fight this Sergeant Slaughter guy. So fast forward to 1996, Hulk Hogan was absolutely done with this character. He decided to join the NWO. Can you imagine? Hulk Hogan was the greatest good guy in all of professional wrestling, but Hulk Hogan was also the greatest bad guy ever, because when he started running the NWO, the guy looked like a Hell's Angels biker gang leader. He was running a crew of Kevin Nash, Scott Hall. Then you had Six Pack from the WWE, who played X-Pac. And then you had, who else? Kurt Hennig. You had a whole bunch of lists. You guys know this is not a professional wrestling show. You know where I'm getting at with that. Bottom line, this right here, those two contrasting aspects of Hulk Hogan, being an American hero and being the biggest American heel in all of professional wrestling, is literally the quintessential attitude that we're talking about with the likes of Brock Lesnar and Floyd Mayweather. And then, interestingly enough, of course, Brock Lesnar had a match with Hulk Hogan back in 2002, which he ended up ripping a Hulk Hogan shirt. But that's neither here nor there. Like I said, it's not a professional wrestling show, so let's concentrate on the combat sports aspects of things, which is why Tom Aspinall is just not as interesting as Brock Lesnar, Floyd Mayweather, or Conor McGregor, or maybe even other English guys such as Michael Bisping, who loves to trash talk. But then you look at Leon Edwards, you think to yourself, the guy isn't exactly the biggest trash talker ever, right? He's not. Not only that, he's not the greatest talker ever. You look at the way that he talks, it is as if he's very insecure about himself. It is as if he feels that, I don't know, man, he can't carry an adult conversation of some sort. And guess what? this is not really unusual from a lot of the kids that I see in the hood. They're unsure of themselves. They don't have the biggest confidence in the world. They don't look at you in the eye when you go and you talk to them because they never had a father figure around. So could you say that Leon Edwards is sort of in that same bubble? Yeah, 100%. I mean, obviously the guy grew up in a single mother home, right? Just like most people in the hood. But that's neither here or there. That just kind of tells you how his personality was forged in the way that it was. Really important to know. Other than that, here's another thing that I think is really important to know and understand. When you grow up in a certain area, in any part of the world, you're just going to have a different personality than anybody else. I'm going to tell you a story about a buddy of mine who was a Saudi. His dad, by the way, was a diplomat. So he understands world cultures on top of understanding, obviously, becoming an expert in Middle Eastern politics because he's literally embedded in it. He said to me, my friend's Saudi father, he said to me, the best way to judge and stereotype people is to analyze how their government treats them. And when he said that, it blew my mind to a whole different stratosphere of trying to understand what this world really is and how people are and how their environmental factors really play a significant role in how they're going to see themselves, their relationship with other people around them and their neighbors and their domestic neighbors, their international neighbors, maybe even, let's say, their neighbors within their own neighborhood, like a real neighborhood, right? I'm not talking about borders and state lines or anything like that. I'm literally. Hey, listen, this is an interesting comment right here. He says something to the extent, it's funny listening to this nerd attempting to analyze hood stupidity. Well, here's the thing about it, right? What is stupid about what it is that Hassan Campbell went through or whatever type of attempt I'm trying to make in analyzing hood politics in some kind of way, right? And also the aspect of nerd, well, what am I supposed to sound like? Am I supposed to sound like somebody that is inarticulate? Am I supposed to sound like somebody that sounds ignorant? And am I supposed to sound like somebody that's going to insult someone's culture by trying to attempt to sound like them when I'm totally nothing like them? Right? I mean, think about this, right? But anyways, thanks for the engagement. Either way, I appreciate all the comments. I don't get offended by any of these. I like these. But if you're going to say something and try to be offensive in any kind of way, well, I'm going to push back and I'm going to let you know what is what on each particular topic and give you the most objective takes possible. Carry on. Talking about like your neighbor, how you treat them. Well, in America, is it any surprise to you that a hyper-capitalistic society like this, people play a role of, let's say, how do I say this? Keeping up with the Joneses, right? I mean, literally, you want to talk about keeping up with the Joneses. Check this out right here. See? Check out these brothers right here. You know what you see out of that? What you see right there was literally a prime example of guys that are showing off. I mean, look, I'm not knocking them or anything like that, right? There's nothing wrong with what they are doing, but come on. Obviously, they're taking a picture of a Mercedes-Benz to put it on the gram to sort of show the world their self-worth. Welcome to America. Welcome to the culture of trying to trying to one up on the next guy that is next to you. This is what you do around here. This is the personality that you gain from it. So now let me tell you about how I grew up in the East Coast. Everybody there grew up conceited. Everybody there grew up thinking they were God's gift on earth. They thought they were the toughest guy. They thought they were the best athlete. They thought they had all the money in the world, even if some of them were living destitute or damn near in poverty. But that's the reality of the East Coast mentality in the Northeast of America. Everybody is trying to hustle and grind. Everybody is trying to outdo each other. So it is no wonder that you develop this kind of personality when. So now, do you see why I played this video in retrospect to understanding what is going on with Hassan Campbell, right? What exactly is it that he went out there to the Bronx for? This guy lives in New Jersey. He's a father. He has kids. Not that that really matters, right? Because I get that a lot of people always say that whenever you get involved yourself in conflict, they say, well, you know, you have kids, you got a career, you got this going on. But at what point are you going to stop being a coward and actually take action? Right? There has to be that question. But then there's also the other question in regards specifically to Hassan Campbell. What is the purpose of him doing that? Right? And who was he trying to get at? Also, you got to think with the video. I'm going to go back to the video in just a second with the speculation that a lot of people have of being fake and whatnot. And I'm going to try to break that down and probably give some sort of some sort of different variations of interpretations as to what is what, because obviously it's not all clear cut and dry. And then he says, God, you're spot on with keeping up with the Joneses. The problem is the wealthy and material crap do not make you who you are. Your heart and moral integrity make you who you are. Also, most people drive cars. Integrity makes you who you are. Also, most people drive cars. Okay, yeah. I think I understand what you mean by that. Yeah, that's what it really is. That's what it boils down to. And you know what? Here's the thing that I do like about Hassan Campbell's content. He does emphasize a lot of those things. But at the same time, even as much as he emphasizes those things, well, you know, he also falls back into this particular machismo setting that he has to try to prove, which is where he was at today. And then he says, William here says, they can't afford and homes too. They can't afford car. Okay. So he's saying they can't afford the cars and they can't afford homes. Okay. I see what you're saying. So, back more on this right here. You grow up in the Western world. Now, you look at Khamzat Chimaev. A lot of people always say, this guy is very different than Khabib in Islam. Well, no kidding. When did he move to Sweden? Somewhere around maybe 11 or 15 years old. And then, lo and behold, guess what? It's no wonder the guy has a bit of a European hooligan mentality in him, because guess what? You're living in Sweden. What do you got there in Sweden? You got the Chechen mafia. You got hood Arab dudes that are running drug shipments from Spain and God knows where else. This is the reality of that world when you live in a Western circumference of whether it's the United States, Sweden, France, United Kingdom, Finland, Germany, all these places. So all these places forge your personality into who you are. And this is the reason why that press conference with Tom Aspinall, Sergey Pavlovich, Jerry Prohachka just were not up to par with entertainment factors. But by the way, to give a context in this, I made this video the day right after the press conference for UFC 295, which, by the way, took place in where? No other than New York. Yeah, you know that Alicia Keys and Jay-Z song, New York. But yeah, which, by the way, is the whole theme of this whole entire live stream right now is New York. The New York mindset, the New York state of mind, and everything else in between. So then you got to think to yourself, well, what about Tom Aspinall? Isn't he a Westerner? Didn't he grow up in Manchester? Don't they have stabbings and riots that go on in Manchester, England? Yeah, they do. But you also got to understand, Tom Aspinall is not the most hood dude there is. The guy grew up with a great father figure. By the way, a guy who literally taught him how to fight, knew how to fight himself, was a jiu-jitsu black belt like himself, grown Tom to become a jiu-jitsu black belt and learn other mixed martial arts components. So, yeah, as I was saying, the last part that I had mentioned about Tom Aspinall is that, yeah, he's not the most hood dude, right? Even though Manchester, you can argue, is quite hood. And you ask any Englishman, any British guy out there, Manchester is a great city for football. They have these two big teams out there, Manchester United and Manchester City. But there's an underbelly that goes on into that town that just is to unspeakable proportions, right? I mean, you're talking about human trafficking, you're talking about drug trades and shipments and things of that nature, and guys selling straps from Eastern Europe, and yeah, you know. But nonetheless, that didn't affect him in a negative way, right? We're talking about Tom Aspinall. Why? Because to segue this into what is going on with Hassan Campbell, he had a great father figure, right? And this is something that a lot of people in the hood are missing, is a great father figure, which is the reason why a lot of these guys act very irrational and emotional in a certain way. And look, this is not a knock on anybody that grew up in single mother homes or anything like that. It's just a matter of fact that if you don't have a male figure in your house, this is what's going to happen. You're going to act erratic and emotional. And I don't think Hassan Campbell is any different in this light. Now, look, here's the thing about this, right? Uh, could he have been doing this based on just trying to get clout and views? That's not really far fetched. This is what this man does. He's a content creator, right? Just like me, I'm a content creator. So guess what? Before I make any videos regarding, let's say, a breakdown of a fight or a breakdown of a storyline that is going on in the UFC, PFL, Bellator, boxing, or Muay Thai, or any combat sports out there that I can cover, I make sure that I have a title that is attractive to the eyes of the viewers, right? Because otherwise, you're not going to come and watch it. You can say that I'm, yeah, the best YouTuber in terms of MMA content creation. You can say that I have the best articulation. You can say that I have the best breakdowns or this and that. But none of that will matter if I don't have the right title to attract you. And the same thing with Hassan Campbell. He's got a great mind. He's very intelligent. He's got great experiences that he can draw from, that he can teach to the outer world. But the problem is that there's this aspect of trying to garner attention. And at what cost are you willing to do that? Some will do certain things that puts them out of their character, and some will do things that will shock the entire world just so they can get those views. And I just think this is where Hassan Campbell is at. And then William here says, and you know what, most of those material people at the end of the day, they are unhappy. I'm sorry. Money doesn't buy you morals or happiness. Too many people have their priorities messed up. Yes, this is very true. This is very true. Now, aside from the fact that Hassan Campbell is a guy that we can say, well, you know what, he is a very wholesome guy. You could say that he's based because he does bring in a lot of Islamic teachings to his live streams and tries to relate it to the current stories that is going on. But at the same time, you also got to understand there is a certain level of materialism that you are driven by when you try to do this YouTube stuff, right? There's a lot of money involved if you have enough views and you have enough of a following. And even as wholesome and as base as you are, you're going to be motivated by just certain things. You're going to be motivated by certain actions, and sometimes you may not even know it. So that's one of the most important things to really understand about what is going on with Hassan Campbell at this current moment of time. So we'll talk more about Hassan Campbell, but first, I wanted to share with you some of the boxing that is going on in this particular Saturday, because unfortunately there is no UFC fight this weekend. They're going to have a UFC fight, I think, in December 2nd. So that is going to be a couple of weeks away. The UFC is going to take a break for Thanksgiving. But for this week, you will have right here Benavidez taking on Demetrius Andrade. Now, what's interesting about this fight is that these are two guys that Canelo Alvarez in one way or another is sort of avoiding, right? I mean, like, these are the two guys that everybody wants Canelo to fight. I mean, not so much Demetrius Andre because he doesn't have the big name or the following to that extent. But what you do have out of Demetrius Andre is a very slick fighting style that could present a lot of problems to Canelo. Now, with David Benavidez, he is one of these fighters that likes to move forward. He has a great height on him. He doesn't really use it as much, but he does tend to use a lot of hooks and a lot of power shots in close range to try to take you out. So this is going to be an interesting matchup in and of itself. And then you have Chantel Cameron taking on Katie Taylor, which is going to be live in Dublin. So be sure to know that Conor McGregor is going to be present in that fight. He's going to attend and he's going to support his fellow Irish woman, Katie Taylor. So that's going to be interesting. And then obviously the UFC had Craig Allen taking on, what was his name? Paul Craig this weekend. Craig versus Allen this weekend. I had a coverage on that. I'm going to play you guys a video that I had made regarding that particular fight. And also a little bit of a review of Adam Cattrall going at it with Frank Warren. So it's a video that I made just
no, which you
right
no,
here.
sorry.
Here we go. Brandon Allen gets the biggest win of his UFC career. More on that in a little bit. For now, we're going to react to the little beef with Frank Warren and Adam Cattrall. For those of you that don't know who Adam is, he is the host of TNT Sport, formerly known as BT Sport. And, well, some of the interactions was because of the fact that they didn't make the Usyk fight on time. And then Frank Warren rebuttals Adam to basically tell him what is the insides of what is going on, and what are some of the misconceptions the fans have, as opposed to, let's say, what the promoters have to deal with in the boardroom when they are trying to make this fight. So here we go. We're going to have Adam Cattrall in a little bit. I don't have the, I'll show you the physical video right here.
Ever been made, because he only defended the title against Joshua last August. It only went off last August. So it's been done, it was done, and it's supposed to have happened in December, and he pulled out of an injury, and then he signed with Skills Challenge, so it never happened. So Tyson never ducked anybody, and that's what the big problem is now with TalkSport, because of the mantra that he was basically coming from you, Adam. The second thing is, talking about...
You know why I said that, though, don't you? You know why I said what I said, because Tyson has said publicly that he didn't want to fight Alexander Usyk. He said that publicly.
Yeah, of course he did. That's why we've been negotiating for and trying to get all this time. Please. And more importantly, the other...
So I want to interject on that a little bit, because obviously I'm reacting to this. I'm not just going to let you play the entire video and then just not say anything. So in between that, this is what I'm going to say. For one, Frank Warren makes a very good point. The only time that, Alexander Usyk defended the titles was against Anthony Joshua last August, and then he comes back and fights Dubois, and obviously, make of that as you will, he won the fight regardless of any opinions you have, even regardless of any opinions that I have, because I actually thought that, that was a clean shot on the part of Dubois. But that's neither here or there. The point is, he was in there, he was active, he was doing what he was supposed to, and Frank Warren is definitely correct on the aspect of, it's one of the quickest undisputed unification fights that have ever been made. So he's 100% right about that. Adam Cattrall also has to understand that, yes, Tyson Fury did say that he did not want to fight, quote unquote, the little man, or the middleweight, as he likes to call him. Well, you got to understand, right? During that time, you got to put yourself in a mindset of Tyson Fury. He didn't know if that fight was going to happen. And then on top of that, he sort of understood going into that boxing match with Francis Ngannou that he was quite a dangerous opponent. And he made no bones about it. He made no reservations as far as slacking off in training, even though a lot of people say otherwise because of how his body looks, as if his body didn't always look like that, or the performance that he had going on, like as if Francis Ngannou is somehow somebody that doesn't have a pulse, let alone the type of power and the type of knockout prowess that he has possessed in him. So, yeah, that's some of the things that people really have to take into consideration as this fight is being made. So, more on Adam Cattrall and Frank Warren right here in this segment. Play.
The other morning you done that interview. So that's champagne. The show that we're putting on in December is Prosecco, and up till
it's a step in the right direction, is what I said. Is it not? Is it not?
Let me finish what I was going to say, because I listened to you on the radio, and then all the rest of the fights have been warm lager. So the fights, the heavy. No, that's
wasn't referring to yours. I wasn't referring to yours. I was referring to promoters in general.
Well, I'm not in general. Who then? Well, let's go through it then. So you got, this is what.
He says, well, I'm not in general. Well, Frank Warren, yes, you are in general, because you have to understand boxing is a very old sport. They have one way of doing things. It's really no secret why. I mean, look, I love this guy. He's one of my favorite fighters coming up, but there's a reason why Hamza Shiraz, and just like anybody else who's an up-and-coming prospect, has a little bit of an easier fight as they move up in the professional ranks, as opposed to, let's say, in the amateurs, where you really don't know who you're facing. It's a real competitive architecture, and you can't hide behind cherry picking or rightful matchmaking at that. So when Adam is saying, yeah, this is what promoters do in general, it is as if Frank Warren is trying to step himself out of that equation, like as if he does something way different than everybody else. Well, now he's doing a lot of things way differently, because guess what? The Saudis are willing to pay a certain amount of money for these guys to go out and risk their being, let's say, taken. So make of that as you will. Continue on.
On heavyweight.
Has the heavyweight division been disappointing over the last 2 to 3 years?
No, it's not. I'll tell you why, and I'm going to go through it, because this is what you don't even understand or look at. So we made the number 1 WBO with a number 3, which was Parker. That was Joe Joyce Parker. We made the name that Parker. They're the ones who are available. The other 2 guys had fights, so we done the next best thing. We then done Joe Joyce twice with Zhang, the number 1 and number 2. Were they warm lager? In the meantime, Joshua, within the last, 14 months, had his second fight against Usyk. So what bollocks are you talking about? It's just crap. You're in general. There's no in general. You just go and pick something out which is totally inaccurate and untrue.
But I said that you're going in the right direction. That's the step in the right direction.
What's the step in the? So explain to me then. Right. So what's supposed to have happened then? What was supposed to have happened since last August? What were these guys all supposed to do? Not the number 1 and number 2 and number 3's not fight each other, because that's what they did, isn't it, or not? We made the next best fights to be made. Then you've got the other fights there, which is the other fight that everybody's been trying to make. We've made that happen, and it's us who forced it. The reason it didn't happen is because Usyk signed with Skills Challenge, who never made an offer, never put a penny up, never had a venue to put it on or anything. And that's the fact of life. And as soon as that contract expired, we done the deal. So it's bollocks. And that's so frustrating and annoying. And you to go on the radio and just generalise one lager. Do me a favour.
That's what I've called this show, though. I've not called this show coming up that.
I know you did. No, you said what's been going on is warm lager. You referred to the heavyweight division. That's what you said. I listened to it. So I don't get where you're at. So if the number 1 and the number 2 and the number 3 have all fought each other, and Joshua goes and defends his title against, what's his name? Usyk. Usyk has the rematch. And Tyson, by the way, has a fight. He's mandatory against Dillian White. What you said, Dillian White should be getting much more money than that. He's the number 1. He's been there for ages. He deserved to get more money. That's what you did.
Yeah, I'm not denying that.
So why would he get more money if it's a warm beer? Sorry?
Why are we going all the way back to last April? We're talking
Well,
about...
because that's what you said. You said up to that, it's all been warm lager. That's not my words, they're your words.
But I want the best guys to fight the best guys, right?
Well, didn't the best guys fight the best?
All right, so fair enough on Adam, right? I'm going to continue on, but I'm going to interject from here on this point, right, and then play it again. So Adam, he has a point on certain things, but Frank Warren also has a point. And by the way, this is one of the reasons why I'm considered a communications expert, not just by paper, but also by the reality of how I break down, let's say, conflicts within the mixed martial arts and boxing world. So again, when it comes to communication and miscommunications, you have to understand that one person has a certain view that the other person is not seeing. And what exactly is that? Well, here's the thing that a lot of the casual fans don't see. What they don't see is the fact that a lot of these guys have a schedule, right? Or if they're already scheduled, it's going to be very difficult to schedule their next 2 fights, let alone their next one, while they're already contracted and getting ready for a current one in the present moment of time. So therefore, they are just trying to do their best to get people signed up. And yes, in the past, there have been problems with a lot of ducking. There have been problems with people, let's say, not taking the fights that they should have, or maybe even injuries, or perhaps any type of excuses that they want to make when one fight doesn't happen to the other. Now, to Frank Warren's credit, you have to understand he does make a good point that they made the best fights that they could. Even before the Saudis went into the world of boxing, they were already making the best boxing matches from around maybe 21, 22, and now to 23. Now the Saudis just came in there and literally solidified the entire thing where they can make super cards like this with a Day of Reckoning in December 23rd, but they can also bring in the big fights such as Usyk and Tyson Fury, which, by the way, will probably have a lackluster undercard because a big matchup like that is just going to have a lackluster undercard, at least traditionally for the most part. Or for all we know, the Saudis are going to blow us out of the water and come up with an even better undercard in February. Maybe something that has something to do with the December 23rd card. Like, for example, if, let's say, Deontay Wilder gets a clean knockout and Anthony Joshua gets a clean knockout, okay? And I'm talking real early. They can turn around from late December all the way to early February just like that within a drop of a hat. If they decide to do that, if the money is lucrative enough, if they fit into the puzzle of what it is that they want to do with that Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk card. Now, the other elephant in the room is Francis Ngannou. People were upset that Tyson Fury picked Francis Ngannou over Alexander Usyk. Well, there's a couple of reasons for that. Maybe because of the fact that he was just coming off of the Dubois fight. And then Frank Warren made quite a good point about the fact that, yeah, Dylan White was the mandatory at the time for Tyson Fury. By the way, a guy that he never fought before. And then he fought Derek Chisora right after. Well, I got to tell you, there's a reason why he fought Derek Chisora right after. Is because he wants to stay active but not have a hard matchup. And one can argue, and I've said this plenty of times over and over again, these easier matchups actually help you with the harder ones. And I've mentioned this plenty of times, referencing Khabib and what he did with MMA when people sort of compare his early career as, well, a prospect building, boxing style career matchmaking type of thing. But more on Frank Warren and Adam Cattrall as I play this one right here. So yeah, you guys have to understand that there's more to the boxing business than just guys getting in there and fighting. So
not the best. So what you're saying, the number 1 and the number 2 and the number 3 all fought each other. Joshua had the rematch. Tyson fought his mandatory. That's not the best. So Tyson fights at Chisora. Right, so
he called out Joshua at that time. Sorry? He called out Joshua at that time.
Joshua didn't want it. Joshua didn't want it. Well, you're telling me he wanted it?
I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, we've all seen the
Tyson, he didn't want it.
We've all seen the Netflix documentary where Tyson said what? He wouldn't give you more time to make the negotiation. He was asked.
Oh, stop talking bollocks.
It's on the TV.
No, it's on. What happened was we were negotiating. It's on TV. And what you say on the radio is on the radio, but it's not the truth. What happened was the fight was being negotiated. He said he wanted it, categorically said he wanted it, give him 60-40. And then in the January, they pulled out of the fight. You know why they pulled out? Because he didn't have a trainer, and he didn't want, and they said he didn't want it. Frank Smith, in an interview on I think it's on IFL, did he not say that?
Yes, he
That's
did. Yeah.
what he said. And then we offered it again to him, and they didn't want it. In writing. So don't keep digging Tyson Fury out, because it's a liberty what you do with him. It's a disgrace you keep having a go at him the way you do. I think it's disrespectful to him. Like the fight he was going to have against your UFC guy, who you don't like the UFC guy, because the UFC, he don't fight for him anymore. That was going to be just a nothing thing. So didn't wasn't that for the fans a good fight?
It was entertaining, yeah.
It's a good fight.
Yeah, I don't think Frank Warren knows Adam is a UFC guy. I don't think he knows he covers UFC anyways.
Right, I think, that's that wrapped up on that section. Let's just talk about Nick Ball. We can't not talk about Nick Ball. Unbelievable tonight fight with Isaac Dogbe.
It was composed. It was
So yeah, after that, Frank Warren just goes on and talks about other fights that are irrelevant to the subject that we're talking about. But yeah, either way, so yeah, I think Adam Cattrall got a little bit of a lesson there in terms of what is going on in the inside. Look, here's something we have to understand as content creators, media personnels, and YouTubers on the MMA and boxing space. We're not always going to know what the promoters are doing behind the scenes. Now, can we judge by what is the apparent? In the Muslim community, it's a common phrase that we use. We judge by what is the apparent. In other words, yes, it sounds judgmental, but sometimes you got to call a spade a spade. In other words, you got to call haram what is haram. And if it's haram and it's right in front of you, well, you can't say, well, I'm just doing it because I have some secret diabolical plan that's going to somehow uplift the Muslim Ummah from whatever shambles are going through in the current moment of time. So I'm going to play this role of committing haram for the sake of doing the greater good or this and that. Yeah, no, we judge by what is the apparent, right? So at times you cannot judge a content creator or a media combat sports personnel to go into, well, this is what he said. He said that he is a middleweight. He said that he doesn't want to fight him. He said that in a Netflix documentary that he did not want to go through with this fight because of one reason or another. And then on top of that, well, Frank Warren sort of fires back at him and says something to the effect of, well, you know, you say a lot of things on radio either, but how is that true or how is that not true? Now, let me decipher that part. The fact of the matter is, with that particular aspect, you got to understand that when a content creator or a media personnel is talking about fights or they're talking about negotiations, or let's say in Ariel Helwani's case, where he dropped a news that he wasn't supposed to regarding Brock Lesnar participating in UFC 200. Okay, that right there is one of those situations where maybe you spoke out too soon, maybe they didn't want you to know, or maybe you just have the wrong information and Brock Lesnar was never going to fight in UFC 200, which obviously Ariel Helwani was correct on that, but the UFC was sort of angry back in 2016 that he went and revealed the news before anybody else because they had a video package that they had going on. They had a plan going on behind the scenes. And guess what? The media people are just not going to be in the know of their plans and the strategy that is involved in these promoting matters. So this is one of the ways that we have to really understand objectively that maybe we don't know everything. And maybe we don't understand the long-term goal. By the way, check out my latest video that I did prior to this one. It's called The Saudis' Long-Term Plan for Boxing and MMA. I go into details about what they're trying to do, why they have these certain matchups, as opposed to, let's say, just shooting from the hip and having AJ fight Deontay Wilder. I go into details about that. Check that out. If you guys have the time, it's right on the video section of this channel. But nonetheless, that's one of the main theses that you have to understand with this reaction to the video that I played with you guys, is that there are certain situations that are being planned up ahead and they're not going to reveal it for one reason or another. Obviously, for that same situation that I mentioned with Ariel Helwani, why didn't the UFC want him to reveal that? Well, because they were going to have a video package for UFC 199, the pay-per-view prior to UFC 200, and promote the fact that Brock Lesnar is going to be in that card taking on Mark Hunt, which to the current lawsuit that Mark Hunt has going on with the UFC right now, only for Mark Hunt to lose. But yeah, that's neither here or there. So either way, you got to understand that whatever they have planned, they're not going to let you know, but it's just obvious you're always just going to speak on what is the apparent or what it is that you were told, but maybe sometimes what you know isn't what is really going on. And that's one of the most important things to understand when it comes to combat sports media and everything in between. So now let's go into the main event, which was the main event last night. Brendan Allen taking on Paul Craig. Now, I really had high hopes for Paul Craig in this one, specifically because of the fact that he's a submission artist, great grappler, moving down a weight class. Was really excited to see how it would unfold for him fighting in this lower weight class and how it would affect him as, let's say, the much heavier grappler. Well, unfortunately, like many divisions and many upcoming generations of fighters, they're going to have just more skilled guys out there that you may not know about. Brendan Allen is one of them. He is one of those guys where he's somewhat of a dark horse in the 185 division, but nobody really knows him until, of course, you take on a name like Paul Craig, a big name that has wins over Jamal Hill and among other names such as Ankalaev and a whole list of other guys that are top 205ers. Now, the question is, was it a wise choice for Paul Craig to go down at 185? Because let's face it, man, Paul Craig is a big guy. He's an even bigger guy at 185. But at what point does that become a sense of diminishing returns? He got finished by submission, by a rear naked choke. And by the way, this is his specialty. So you make of that as you will. Now, this is one of those situations where you can't take away from Brendan Allen, but you also can't help but criticize whatever it is that Paul Craig has going on into why he wasn't able to pull the trigger that night. Is it just Brendan Allen is really that good? Or is it that, well, Paul Craig is in the wrong weight class, wrong division, and in a place that he really doesn't belong, but tries to fit in, and this is the result of it? You never know. Only now you can speculate, just like everything that we talked about with speculating all the things that goes on in the world of combat sports and its inner business and the insides of their business and what it is that they do behind closed doors in a boardroom, right? We can't speculate straight away. We have to let it play out. Not only let it play out, but we also have to allow certain situations to come about. Like, for example, allowing the Usyk and Dubois fight to play out, allowing the Francis Ngannou and Tyson Fury fight to play out for us to have this unification undisputed championship fight. Well, now it's the same thing with Paul Craig and Brendan Allen. We don't know if Brendan Allen is really this good, although there is strong indication to lean towards that direction based on his recent performance with Paul Craig. But we also don't know if this is just a matter of Paul Craig being diminished at a weight class that for now we can speculate he doesn't really belong in. So by the end of this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, because I want to give you the most objective takes possible when it comes to combat sports. I don't want to pretend to know things when I don't know things. But if I do know things and I have a definitive evidence that doesn't say otherwise, I'm going to say it and scream it to the high skies and let you know that this is the truth and this is what I found. But if I don't know, I'm going to genuinely ask, is it because Brendan Allen is just so good and Paul Craig is not on his level, or is it that Paul Craig had some sort of diminishing returns and Brendan Allen was just at the right place at the right time, or maybe a combination of these things? In the world of professional sports and in life in general, there are so many nuances that we forget to take a look at in order to understand the full spectrum of a story. If you want to continue doing that, you're going to continuously get wrong information. You're going to run with information that you think you know, only to come up short and look, well, really unintelligent and foolish. Or you want the full spectrum in the truth and nothing but the truth and everything around it. This is what I'm trying to offer you. Nuances, the undisputed truth, letting you know what I know and don't know, but also letting you know the differences of outcomes and variations when it comes to understanding a story, when it comes to understanding the technical breakdowns of a fight, when it comes to understanding combat sports in general. Once again, don't forget to like and subscribe, if anything else, because this is what I'm going to offer you from now till forever. Inshallah. Enjoy the fights. Please like and subscribe and watch till the end. All right. So now that that part is over, I wanted to address what a lot of people are saying about this being fake. Right now, the way that we looked at the stream with Hassan Campbell, it seems that way, right? But there's a famous CIA content creator out there named Andrew Bustamante, and he said something to the effect of, never explain with a conspiracy that can be explained through incompetency. In other words, you got to understand that the live streaming and its YouTube engineers aren't always up to par with having the best quality for their content creators, right? Also, we have to take into consideration, was it all set up or this and that? Now, look, the bullets were real. There's evidence of that. There's police reports that you can look up in terms of what had happened with Hassan Campbell in the Bronx. And you'll see that, well, there's names and there's incidences and there's streets that all coincide with everything that has happened with this whole entire incident. So that's a little something to take a look at in terms of everything else. But other than that, this is really all that we have for the Hassan Campbell story. We're not going to get much about it until, of course, he does another live and goes in there and talks about what had happened. But other than that, really, this is all that we have for Hassan Campbell and what he has going on with his situation right now. Now, are they going to find the guys that went out and shot him? Probably not. There's a highly unlikely chance that that's going to happen. If they do, it's not going to be from Hassan Campbell, because, you know, like anybody else knows out there, there's a certain code of the streets where you just don't talk to the police. You look at what happened with Tupac. How about that, right? In his last breath, he mentioned something to the effect of, well, I'm not going to tell you anything. Or he tells Chris Carroll, the police officer that arrived on the scene, to F you, right? So this is, well, we don't know if this is the type of trajectory that Hassan Campbell is on, but I can't imagine that he is going to name any names for this particular incident. If he does, well, that's going to be a different content in and of itself, right? But if he doesn't, well, let's see, right? So let me read the last few comments that I had before we had gone on with those videos. So, and most of those material people at the end of the day, they are unhappy. I'm sorry, but money doesn't buy you morals or happiness. Too many people have their priorities messed up. Then William also writes, the youth now is very screwed up. They are full of hate. A lot of them are very weak-minded too. I'd say 85% of young males now are missing father figures and lack discipline. Well, I'm glad you had mentioned that. It's quite important to sort of bring that up in this particular story with Hassan Campbell, right? Obviously, the way that he acted was very erratic. It was very highly emotional. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like the right thing to do on his end, right? It just didn't seem like there was any purpose or rational reasons behind what it is that he was trying to do. But in either way, it is what it is. We got into this situation because of that. Or again, let me just say this: he probably did all of this in order to try to get clout. And guess what? This isn't really one of the first times that he's done something like this to garner some kind of attention. But if not, we don't know. Now, obviously, we're just being objective about this whole entire thing, right? We're giving you all the different angles and all the different aspects and variations that could come about in this situation. But for now, this is all that we know, and this is the most plausible reasoning behind everything else that is going on. Everybody else out there is going to say a whole bunch of hoopla saying, yeah, this is all fake. Yeah, Hassan Campbell faked this whole thing. Yeah, this is not real. Yeah, he's just doing this for the clout. I'm not here to say all of that. I'm here to give you the objective truth, which is why earlier this particular foolish man right here made this particular comment. It's funny listening to this nerd attempting to analyze Hood's stupidity. Well, what's stupid in this particular aspect? The act of what Hassan Campbell did? Yeah, you could say that that's sort of dumb or unintelligent or not the right choice. Attempting to analyze Hood's stupidity. Well, guess what? This is something that happens everywhere around the world, right? Especially in some hoods. So what is so stupid about, quote unquote, somebody like myself who has perfect articulation trying to explain what happened to this guy? What is so stupid about this, right? And what is so funny about this? Like, okay, if it's funny to you, great. You're entertained. That's the whole concept of this whole entire thing, right? Is that you are entertained. And by the way, what does Hassan always say? Are you not entertained? Either way, I mean, that's, I don't know, man. Like it's just hilarious the type of comments that people say out there, but that's neither here or there. It's whatever. You know what? Here's another video I want to play for you guys regarding Tupac. I mentioned or had talked about Tupac a few times in this channel, and this is regarding P. Diddy. By the way, also Conor McGregor and P. Diddy, Notorious Life. No, that's not about Tupac. Sorry, where was that video that I made about Pac? Right here. These are some of my catalogs and my videos right here. Let's see here. So I'm particularly excited to do this episode for the simple fact that it deals with a multitude of things that I'm really interested in. For one, if you're my age, somewhere in your late 30s, mid 30s, or early 30s, I think it's safe to say that you grew up listening to Tupac Shakur and the music that was heavily influential in the modern times of today. Now, obviously, you look at the modern rap music of today, it seems very contrasting to the modern style of, let's say, drill, grime, and all the other new stuff that's going on that's way different than the 90s or the G-Funk West Coast era of gangster rap. But nonetheless, I think it's really fascinating that Floyd Mayweather is in this situation right now where a lot of people are implying that he witnessed the murder of none other than Tupac Shakur. Now, why is that interesting? Because, for one, you got to understand, right? In the fight game, there's an aspect of what is real and what is not. And by the way, I've heard in a comment section in one of the early videos where people are complaining about, that I have a warning sign going on that I'm ignoring. And so I'm just going to put on my seatbelt so that this way, this does not interfere with the content that I am currently creating right now. So back to Floyd Mayweather and Tupac Shakur. So as you know, in a fight game, a lot of people always talk about whether this guy is really a gangster or not, right? And then you also see that in the NBA and other sports as well, where you got multimillionaire guys pretending to be gangsters. Aaron Hernandez in the football world, in the NFL, is a great example of that. He went and killed somebody in the Boston area when he was playing for the Patriots, and then all of a sudden gets implied for murder, gets charged for murder, and then hangs himself in the cell that he was locked up in because he just couldn't handle jail. He wasn't really all about that life, and why would he be? The guy is a multimillionaire. Now, Floyd is in that same category right now. And why do I say that? Well, you got to understand something about Floyd Mayweather, right? A lot of people understand that he is the greatest boxer in the world. And when you're that guy, do you really need to go out there and play gangster? To what extent is that useful for your career? Now, you've seen the likes of McGregor, you've seen the likes of Jorge Masvidal, you've seen the likes of Nate Diaz, and you've seen how that was beneficial to their career and their persona and the brand that they are building that sells pay-per-view tickets and merchandise. Now, with Floyd Mayweather, this is a guy who has built a multi-million-dollar empire, probably even a billion-dollar empire, based on the controversy that a lot of people wanted to see him lose. So when you went out and saw the Oscar De La Hoya fight, you went out and saw the Sugar Ray fight, the Sugar Shane Mosley fight, it was because you wanted to see him lose. The Ricky Hatton fight, you wanted to see him lose. Manny Pacquiao, you wanted to see him lose. Well, guess what? He doesn't, because he fooled you into thinking that these guys had a shot, and they really didn't all along. And so because of that, now you have a situation where Floyd Mayweather is in this situation where he's telling the cops that he's seen Tupac get murdered. Or I'm sorry, did he tell the cops? I don't think he did. But there's a thing in the hood called dry snitching. So why I think this is important to bring up is because you got to ask yourself, what is your identity in the world of fighting? Are you a gangster or are you just an athlete? And I think Floyd now is in a situation where he maybe has to give up information on what it is that he saw that night when Tupac Shakur got killed in that Las Vegas strip. This was in 1996 when Floyd Mayweather was a rookie in his pro debut, right? This was his first year as a pro fighter. And he was living in Vegas. He was living in an apartment near the area of which Tupac was shot. And because of that, he and his homeboys, as he claims the story to have taken place, said that, yeah, only me and my boys were the only ones who knew about it. And you could see that in a video surfacing back in 2014 when him and the late John Singleton, the director of Boys in the Hood and other films in the 90s, was touring around Las Vegas, and Floyd Mayweather was showing him around saying, hey, look, this is where Tupac got shot at. And so now you got to think to yourself, with all the situation that is going on with Las Vegas PD right now, right? They got this guy, Keefe D, who was part of the Southside Crips, where his nephew got jumped by Tupac and his crew and Suge Knight during that night when Mike Tyson fought Bruce Seldon. So now you're in that situation, and what are you going to do if the Las Vegas PD starts asking you questions? Are you going to do the right thing? Which, by the way, what exactly does that even mean? Because we're talking about two different types of ethos going on here, right? We have the code of the streets, and then we have the code of what normal civilians do when things happen to them. Now, is it snitching if, let's say, you get into a car accident and you need to file a police report in order for you to claim to your insurance about the damages that have gone on in the accident? Is that... Which, by the way, sort of brings this whole thing into what had happened with Hassan Campbell during what I believe was 21 or 20, when he called the police saying that, like, he dismantled a gun from an assassin of some sort, and then he wanted the cops to come there and take the weapon as evidence. So there's a lot of moral dilemma in that when it comes to, let's say, quote unquote, the code of the streets, or what you have to do as a civilian. So more on this. Snitching. Is it snitching if, let's say, you go and tell the police about the neighborhood nunce, the neighborhood child molester that's roaming around in your neighborhood? Are you going to tell the cops, or are you just going to let another kid get violated? Now, obviously, there are rules to this, and there's historical implications on matters at hand when you deal with, let's say, the word snitching, right? Why did that concept even come about? Well, for one, you got to understand there's a historical mistrust with the African American community, other minority communities, and the police, whether it's here in the United States or whether it's in England or anywhere in the Western world or anywhere in the world where a Western country has colonized people and brought people to their part of their world. This is always going to be a problem, especially when they're segregated into ghettos and into secluded parts of society, being shunned away from jobs, being shunned away from the mainstream world, and then having this establishment outlook of your society of some sort, right? And of course, you got to understand now, are police always correct? No, absolutely not. And is there any reason why the African American community should distrust the police? Absolutely. So, of course, this policy and this idea and this ethos and this way of thinking of not snitching, by the way, is valid to a certain degree and to a certain point. Now, the other aspect of that is who lives by that code and who doesn't. Because you guys remember Tekashi 6ix9ine, right? Well, the interesting aspect about Tekashi... By the way, Hassan Campbell has ran across Tekashi 6ix9ine so many times and has made content about him, which I thought was really interesting. I urge you guys to take a look at some of that content regarding Tekashi 6ix9ine and Hassan Campbell sometime in the future. 6ix9ine is that there are OGs out there with the likes of, let's say, Whack 100. And by the way, Whack 100, as you guys know, who's a famous music producer, was part of the Death Row entourage in the 90s and then continued his musical career or his executive career way past the 2000s, mid-2000s, and all the way to the modern times now, where he's managing drill rappers and people that make music like Tekashi 6ix9ine. Well, he's got some interesting takes on Tekashi 6ix9ine and his quote-unquote snitching situation that he had going on with the 9 Trey Bloods of New York. And what that is he says that Tekashi 6ix9ine is a civilian. He's not a gangster. So if the police ask him questions, he has the right to cooperate. And then you compound the idea of the fact that Tekashi 6ix9ine was violated by these guys in multiple ways that really creates a certain distrust that you have of a crew that was supposed to watch your back. So in turn, it's like, could you blame Tekashi 6ix9ine? But at the same time, what does it really mean when you say that this person can't snitch or this person should not go to the police with this kind of information? Now, with Floyd, the reason why I bring Floyd into this situation is because I think that he has put himself in a situation where now this could potentially be damaging for his brand. And why is that? Well, for one, you got to understand, Floyd Mayweather is not a gangster. We know that. But at the same time, we don't know that. So why do I say that? Well, because if the fact that you don't know that he's a gangster, it's better that you don't know that he went out and snitched on somebody, especially one of the most high-profile murder cases in all of rap's history. And now you're going to be a part of that, and you could ruin a certain legacy that you have in the underworld or whatever it is that you're trying to personify yourself as. Guess what? McGregor, I don't think he's ever been in a situation where he had to be compromised to snitching in any kind of way or implied in any kind of way that he had to snitch. Of course, you could say a whole lot of things about McGregor. He is this, he's a rapist, he's done this to other people, he's done that, he's punched old men. But the one thing that you can't call Conor McGregor ever is a snitch because he's never in that situation. Now, Colby Covington is a whole different case. Even though he exaggerates his personality in the way that Floyd Mayweather does, let's just call it what it is. Floyd Mayweather is part of the urban community. And in the urban community, the idea of snitching is just an absolute blasphemy in the most respectful terms that I could really describe it to be. Whereas with Colby Covington, guess what? You know what that guy says? When you ask him, hey, you know what? Who's going to help protect you? Everybody in the MMA world wants to kill you or wants to hurt you because of all the things that you say about Brazilians, the things that you say about Muslims, the things that you say about racial undertones that is sort of ambiguous to point out. Well, he says my protection in my gang is the Miami PD, the LAPD, the NYPD. Why? Because guess what? Colby Covington comes from an ethos to where it is normal for you to have a normal relationship with the police. You can't put Floyd in that same standard. So that is the difference between the likes of Colby Covington and the likes of Floyd Mayweather when it comes to this no snitching policy. So what's going to happen now with this Tupac case? Who knows? But the fact that Floyd Mayweather is implied in this whole entire fiasco, I think is the most interesting part about it. But just like all theaters of the unknown, let's see what happens next. And by the way, I will be making a part 2 of this, but this time I'm going to do it live. So catch part 2 on this one on the live. Have a big following, or when a lot of people watch you and things of that nature. This is just the reality of what happens. What happens is you fight beyond or act beyond the personality of your median path, meaning who you are on a daily basis. You sort of change up on that. You sort of become a different person because you're around different people. And so that's exactly what Tupac did. He went and humiliated Orlando Anderson in front of everybody. And then lo and behold, what happens? Orlando Anderson comes back and allegedly gets a retaliation on Tupac Shakur, right? And here's the thing. We're talking about just the realm of combat, okay? Let's really keep it in the realm of combat because that's what this is. There's sanctioned combat and then there's combat on the streets. But nonetheless, what people really need to understand is if you have a mindset like Nate Diaz or these other gangster type of guys or these guys that come from honor Islamic cultures in MMA and boxing, that's what you're going to get is a combat. They see no difference about it. Yes, are they going to be gentlemen about it? Are they going to be nice? Are they going to shake hands? Some will. I'm talking about the Dagestani guys or the Muslim guys that come from an honor culture. Yes, they take it seriously as a war, but they may or may not disrespect their opponent depending on how their opponent comes across them. With Nate Diaz, he mentioned something today to the effect of where, you know what, I'm not really going to trash talk. I'm not really going to go do this back and forth. And his reason why is because he said that this is an incomplete fighting system, boxing. So why am I going to go and try to make a fiasco over something that is not real combat? And that's sort of how he viewed it, which I thought was really fascinating, interesting, and everything all of the above, right? I think that's a really interesting perspective because there are people that actually view that. Look at Conor McGregor after he lost to Floyd Mayweather. What did he say? He said something to the effect of, well, I felt like I lost some football match or something, soccer to that effect, right? It wasn't really a real fight, so he didn't really take it personal as such. So that is the trajectory in which how a lot of people view rules in real combat. So you got to think that in MMA is a sport that is the closest thing to street fighting. Now, you look at what happened with the Orlando Anderson jumping, right? Did that look like a boxing match, even though they were at a boxing event? No. Matter of fact, it looked more like Pride Fighting Championships with the soccer kicks that they were implementing on Orlando Anderson as the brawl was going on. So with that said, they went and took retaliation to that matter. Right. And in any world of combat, in any society, in ancient civilizations, they would look at Orlando Anderson as the winner. The problem is we live in a world of laws and order, and the Constitution protects everyone in terms of having a fair trial, having a fair shake when, let's say, I don't know, when, let's say, the cops are investigating you as a victim and trying to find the perpetrators and this and that. Yes, we live in those types of laws, but nonetheless, in any particular setting, Orlando Anderson would be the winner. Now, the problem is he can't do that, but also the problem is he wants to do that, meaning that he wants to brag about this accomplishment that he did, but he doesn't want to brag about it too much to where it becomes an attention to the law. And that's kind of where this situation with Keefe D is at the current moment of time. Well, why is that? Well, because you got to think, right? Keefe D is not as famous as Suge Knight. He mentions how he went to school and even played football with Suge Knight. And it's crazy how all these gangster dudes that are involved in this situation all know each other and then the different trajectories that they came up on. Obviously, there's a lot of people that will say that Keefe D made millions in the streets selling drugs, whereas you have Suge Knight, who's made hundreds of millions of dollars being the CEO of Death Row Records. Yes, this is all true, but it's sort of like the reality of what we see in combat sports, right? You look at Eddie Alvarez. What is he known as? He's known as the Underground King. Why? Because guess what? He may not be as famous as Conor McGregor, and perhaps maybe he got a little more famous after the Conor McGregor fight, but the fact that he is the Underground King means that he fought around the world, made a ton of money, but is not really that well known. And that's kind of what Keefe D is in that situation. Whereas Suge Knight, he's the guy that's been there, been in the championships, metaphorically speaking, has had all the platinum records, has had all the big money come his way, big paychecks from album A, from album B, from the Doggy Style album to Dr. Dre's debut album, The Chronic, which was an absolute classic. He has had a part in all that. And then he's had a part with Vanilla Ice, and you know how that went. And I urge you guys to look at what I mean in that context, because I'm not going to make a whole show about that. Just look up Vanilla Ice and Suge Knight and Death Row Records, and then that'll be that. Okay, but then, yeah, these are the two different trajectories that these guys are up on, right? So the problem is, even with all the money that Keefe D has, it will never be as famous as Suge Knight. Okay, now obviously he's not going to have the same amount of money as Suge Knight, but man, if you made millions or whatever, I mean, at a certain point, it really doesn't matter, right? Whether it's 1 million or 100 million. I think when you pass 1 million or 2 million or 3, I just really don't see how you live any different than the next guy, other than just different luxuries that you can buy. One guy can buy a yacht, the other guy can't. The other guy can buy a Ferrari, but yet the small millionaire has a Mercedes Benz. The other guy has 3 houses. Okay, the millionaire has 2 houses. At a certain point, money almost doesn't matter, right? It only matters when you're broke. And the problem is, look, I think Keefe D wanted a little more fame, so he started talking about all this street legend stuff, and people kind of knew and hinted, but then he kind of wanted to poke the bear and sort of say it, and then he had this agreement with the cops where he gives up the shooter of the entire night, and then we don't even know if he's the real shooter, or if it's Orlando, or if he's just saying that it's Orlando because he already got shot. And then at the same time, it's not that far-fetched to believe that Orlando Anderson was the shooter, because he got into a shootout himself in the last moments of his life to defend himself. Well, these are all the realities of all this right now. With all that said, let's talk about Floyd Mayweather's involvement in all this, right? Will he tell? Will he not? And that is the question right here. And should he tell or should he not tell? And if you guys are watching right now or later down the road, I want you to write on the comment section what you think. Do you think that he should tell the police, or he shouldn't tell the police, or it's none of his business, or at some point it really doesn't matter? But nonetheless, he mentions that he's witnessed Tupac get shot. Now, why would he say this knowing that he would get implied by Vegas PD, probably get summoned, probably get asked questions, and then having to force himself to snitch, which would probably be detrimental to his brand in the urban community, which has historically a high mistrust for the police? Well, the reason why is because you got to understand, just like Keefe D, just like anybody out there that has done anything, and just like all these other modern gangsters and modern rappers today that brag about their crimes, Yep. You kind of
Yep.
want clout in whatever it is that you're involved in. Now, for Mayweather to be involved in this, you got to think this creates a much, much higher uh, kudos or props to his brand, right? Oh, now you're one of the guys that witnessed Tupac. Oh, but so if you guys want to check out the rest of that, take a look at the video that I made. Mayweather witnessed Tupac shot in '96. Shocking details in history, part 2. That is on the video section of my videos. So I'm going to end it with this. Here's something that I need you guys to understand. Okay. First and foremost, what Hassan Campbell has done with this, yes, a lot of it was done out of frustration, but you also have to understand there is a certain level of motivation when it comes to clout, when it comes to likes, when it comes to views, especially in this modern world that we live in today regarding, let's say, the guys that are getting the most views and attention when it comes to outrageous behavior. And this is one of them, right? And also, there's this aspect to where we sort of respect people who get shot at rather than the ones who are actually doing a shooting. And I'm going to end it with this particular video that I did 3 months ago talking about Chris Weidman just right before his fight at UFC 292. So Chris Weidman, I compared him to Orlando Anderson. I also compared him to Kamzat when he was coming up, right? And I think this sort of puts this whole entire story in full circle with everything that we're talking about. And this is why I love playing my old videos, because it's not only to promote all the videos that I've made and all the work that I've done for this channel, but also to sort of give you an insight on how some of these stories correlate and connect with each other in a different kind of way. So here it is right here. And by the way, guys, I'm going to end the stream right here with this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Please share. Don't forget to tell a friend so we can blow this channel up to be the biggest mixed martial arts content in the entire YouTube space. Thank you, inshallah. Have a great night, and I will leave you with this video to end the entire stream. Thank you. About exactly 1 week ago, I did a video regarding Orlando Anderson and Tupac Shakur. Well, more specifically, Mayweather being involved in the story. And if you guys want the full details of that, I suggest you take a look at that particular video on the video section alone. But for now, one of the fighters that I had in mind was Chris Weidman when I was thinking about Orlando Anderson. And why is that? Well, for one, I can tell you that with Orlando Anderson, he was the quintessential up-and-coming fighter that nobody knew that was dangerous. And once again, we all know what Orlando Anderson did. This is not in any way to promote gang culture or senseless violence by any stretch of the imagination, but rather to show you a metaphor of combat in terms of how it's interpreted in how I view the combat sports world. But nonetheless, Chris Weidman had a tough upbringing in his mixed martial arts career. Just like most fighters, he wasn't financially stable. And every time he would go to a party, some sort of bank party with his wife and their coworkers, he would often get asked, well, what is it that you do for a living and how much do you make? And would basically feel such of the lesser man in a room full of guys that he knew he would absolutely dismantle with a heartbeat, because any trained fighter or any trained individual can just absolutely do that to a room full of corporate clowns and bankers, right? That's not a hard task, especially if you train all day and especially if you're training to be the best. So Chris Weidman was made to feel less of himself because of his financial situation. And again, this is an aspect that a lot of fighters ultimately deal with in terms of how they go about their early stages of their career. And in the midst of all that, they persevere and suffer through the hardships, and then somehow come out of it as a winner and then as a champion. And then out of all people, Chris Weidman, as one of the individuals who has beaten one of the greatest mixed martial arts fighters of all time, which is Anderson Silva. However, the lackluster aspect of that is that Chris Weidman did not get the clout that he should have deserved, being that he beat the greatest of all time. Sure, did he get a media tour, of which was in grand proportion within the United States of ESPN and all the other American networks? Yes, but it wasn't like Chris Weidman was worldwide famous in a way where, let's say, if he was to go to Germany, he would be mobbed by people and people would not somehow let him shop or anything like that. And I'm talking Prince Harry, Meghan Markle status to where you can't go anywhere without a bodyguard. He wasn't that famous. For guys that beat Anderson Silva, you should be that famous. The problem is the world doesn't see fighting that way. And just like with Orlando Anderson, the rap game and its casual observers really don't see the world in a way of the shooter is the hero, or in this case of mixed martial arts, as the giant killer or the legend killer as the hero of them all. That's not what was seen here. What had happened was he went on to have a great career, but then in the midst of all that, he also had a bit of a lackluster media coverage in the way that Chris Weidman should have had. In other words, like I said, Chris Weidman should have really been given a red carpet treatment in terms of his championship run after he beat Anderson Silva, who was the greatest of all time. We're talking about Vitor Belfort when Vitor Belfort was on juice. And then we're talking about Lyoto Machida when he was in his prime. And not only in his prime, within his optimal weight of 185, of which Lyoto Machida just absolutely looked like one of the best in the world, and Chris Weidman beat him at that stage. Now the tables have turned, just like with everything else. You have a friend in your professional life or in your personal life that, let's say, is doing better than you. Okay, and all of a sudden, somewhere in a few years, you become a CEO of a company, or you become the head of state, or you hold a position to which is way lower than his when originally he had a higher position in you. Let's say some sort of manager, or let's say some sort of higher position in the military when it comes to rankings. Well, that's kind of what's going on this weekend with Aljamain Sterling and Sean O'Malley. Because let's think about this. Aljo was the student of Chris Weidman. And then in the midst of all that, now Aljo seems to be one of the best fighters in the world. And is he still the teacher for Chris Weidman? That's for them to decide within the culture of their gym to find out. But other than that, what is clear and what is apparent is the rise of Aljamain Sterling and the fall of Chris Weidman. And why this is important to understand is that when Chris Weidman was coming up, he looked like an absolute world beater. You want to know the best description I can give you about Chris Weidman during his time? Think of Khamzat Chimaev. You got to remember, this guy became the 185 champion, undefeated, 10-0 when he beat Anderson Silva. So that tells you a lot about a person who seems indestructible in the eyes of many people that were witnessing it at that time. Now, fast forward to this fight that he has with Brad Tavares, you may not really see him as that same Khamzat figure that you did when you saw him coming up during his days of when he fought, let's say, Mark Munoz. None of that. What you see now is the common transition that you're always going to see in combat sports. And what that is that you got to understand that time is limited. Time is precious. But if time permits you to be the best in the world at whatever it is that you do, cherish that moment, because you know what? It's not going to last forever. And whenever anything doesn't last forever, one thing you have to remember is gratitude and appreciation. So what can I say about this particular video that's about Chris Weidman, his history, his rise and his downfall, and the switching between him and his teammates of one guy being the top guy and one guy being the prelim guy or the card opener of the pay-per-view? The one thing I can say is that things change and things evolve and the world turns. So appreciate it when it's your turn, but also appreciate it when it's not. into your time of competition. Now, Michael Bisping said something to the effect where, you know what, it's not about what you did for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks, maybe even 6 weeks, or even 12 weeks of preparation. What it's really about is what you've done your whole entire life in a sport that you've dedicated your life to, and how you're going to execute what you've always been doing your whole entire life. So that's sort of what we're going to expect for this fight with Sergey Pavlovich and Tom Aspinall. Now, here's the interesting thing. The interesting thing that I found about this whole entire week. The psychology of these guys going into this fight, which I find really fascinating. Why do I say that? Well, for one, you got to take into consideration that Sergey Pavlovich was getting ready for John Jones and Stipe Miocic, meaning he was the backup fighter in case one of them got injured. Obviously, here we are. Stipe didn't want to fight anybody other than John Jones, and you can't blame him because he's the bigger name. And then these two guys that you have with Tom Aspinall and Sergey Pavlovich. Now, if you're a hardcore MMA fan, guess what? You know who these guys are. You know they're extremely dangerous, and you know they're very talented. The problem is they don't have that big marquee name like John Jones. So if you're Stipe Miocic, who's already doing great with his life at working as a fireman and already a former world champion at that, it's not the highest motivation in the world for you to want to get in there. So by the time this fight is probably going on, Stipe is probably going to be somewhere in Cleveland, Ohio, saving people from fires and whatnot. And he's going to be all right with that. You know, that's just what that's just the kind of life that he lives, right? You know, he's not concerned about being a world champion. He's not concerned about the clout or anything like that. But when it comes to the fighting aspect of it, he doesn't want to risk anything to somebody that really means nothing to the casual fan base. So here we are. Here's some interesting psychology that I picked up during this week. So during the Michael Bisping and Tom Aspinall fight, the scrum, he mentioned something to the effect where, you know what? I'm going to be champion one day. It may not be this Saturday, but somewhere down the line. Now, why is that a red flag for me? I'm going to tell you why. For one, you got to take into consideration that most guys that are fully confident in what it is that they do, they will tell you, you know what, I'm the best in the world at what I do, and no one's going to stop me from doing it. And they're going to be very definitive about it. Now, there's nothing wrong with being a little bit humble about it. But here's the thing, right? People who've never competed in professional sports or never competed in any fighting sport or any combative situation or anything like that, one of their biggest issues is that they misjudge a lot of things, okay? Because they don't see it from their perspective. So when they see a guy saying that I'm the best in the world, I'm the greatest at what I do, or this and that, they often mistaken it for cockiness. And it's not. It's really not. Now, from my perspective, why is it not? Because, for one, you got to understand, right? You are in a sport where it is extremely dangerous, where somebody can go out and absolutely hurt you. So having a sense of uncertainty when you walk in a cage, when you walk in a ring, or when you walk in a wrestling mat or any field of competition, it's a serious problem if you don't believe in yourself. If you don't, then guess what? The next guy is going to believe more of himself more than you, and he's going to take advantage of that. Now, that's not always the case. You look at Georges St-Pierre, the greatest of all time to ever do it. He wasn't always the most confident guy in his fights or his matchups or his upcoming events, was he? In fact, he was quite nervous in most of his competitions prior to the competition. I'm talking about hours before he would go throw up in the locker room. He would have these mini seizures going on because he was so nervous. But guess what? When he walked in there, he was an absolute lion. So once again, you can't take too much from that. But for me, the way that I see it is that Tom Aspinall psychologically was never really completely sure of himself, and with good reason. He was very underdeveloped as a heavyweight because it was only in this ribs. Really? That's what they do.
This is my album. I'm at 40,000 already. Can you guys give it to me?
I
Because I do it myself. Yeah. Let's go, guys. Music guys. Music guys.
Sorry. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay, let's have it. Go.
Pure Burger. The world famous Pure Burger.
What's a pier?
This is a pier.
I want to go to the.
Afterwards. Yeah, that's a good idea actually. Yeah, we could do that. You want to ride that roller coaster?
No.
Why not? After.
I just want to enjoy the beach. I saw it. Oh my God. There's no access to the beach.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to. There's no access to the beach. How did those people get down?
We'll take a lap this way, go back and then head to the beach.
not prostitution, it's sex work. Oh, you don't have a drinking problem. We're just going to the bar.
I just want to go to the beach.
We will, don't worry.
Why is this scary?